And my hair's getting fucking long. Hey folks, we're just gaming and chilling today, watching YouTube videos and whatnot. Just don't mind me. I might even pretend you're not even there. But let's watch some shit while I play Mario. It's gonna be a weird contrast. Probably some like conspiracy YouTube videos coupled with the Mario game. Let's get into it.
All right, first, foremost, let me address the elephant in the room. I'm not at home right now, I'm traveling, so hopefully it's not too distracting, but we made it the coolest we could with what we had to work with. That being said, unless you've been living under a rock for the past several weeks, you've probably heard of the Nancy Guthrie story. But in case you haven't, or in case you want a refresher, from what we can tell, this is what we know of the Nancy Guthrie story thus far. On January the 31st of 2026, Nancy is driven by an Uber from her home in the Tucson, Arizona area to her daughter Annie's home, not too far away, also in the Tucson area, where they were going to be having dinner. And the drop-off of Nancy occurs around 5:32 p.m. Nancy and her kids have a good time, they have a great dinner, and then Nancy is driven home by her son-in-law, who deposits her outside of her home around 9:48 p.m. He, as we shall discuss, does not walk her inside, and instead waits as she walks up to the garage door and then closes it behind her. A little bit of a detail there, though, we don't know if he actually stayed and witnessed the garage door close behind her, or if he left before she actually made it in there. That is still up in the air and could answer a lot of possible questions as to whether or not people were already inside of Nancy's home while she was away. 2 minutes later, though, we are fairly certain the garage door was closed, no matter what context that happened under. And from that point on, we have basically no idea what went on with
Turn
Nancy.
my mic up a little bit. Ooh, and then turn the main
Nancy's
down a little bit.
Go about the rest of their days
How about
as you
that?
would expect, going to bed and kind of just thinking
Feels
everything
okay?
was all right.
That feels all right?
It seems they had no other reason to think
I hope.
otherwise. However, a handful of hours
All
later
right enough?
at 1:47 a.m., Nancy's going to come back onto our radar when her doorbell camera disconnects. Now, this could mean a number of things. It could mean a loss of internet connection, a loss of power, or it could mean it was straight up ripped out of the wall. But strangely enough, we do know that at 2:12 a.m., the doorbell camera then detects a human figure on the camera. But what's interesting to note is that at the time of Nancy's disappearance and in the ensuing days, we were under the impression that there was not going to be any footage because Nancy and her family didn't pay for a subscription for cloud storage, so it was believed that the footage was automatically deleted. Now, if you're watching this channel, or you're new to this channel, we often dive into what's really going on, and it's no surprise that big government and big corporation aren't actually deleting the footage that they are acquiring, but that would be a rant for a different time. In this case, it happened to work out to the family's advantage because despite not having a subscription to the cloud service, they, via the FBI, were able to connect with Google and get the footage of that night, which we now have of this guy. Long-winded, I apologize. The story continues at 2:28 a.m. when Nancy's pacemaker app displays a warning that the app and the pacemaker have been disconnected.
Don't get why I didn't grab that.
They have
Grab the
gone too
damn
far
wall,
of a
Mario.
distance to remain in link with one another.
What
Now,
you
this
doing,
would
man?
really only be possible if Nancy had been taken via some vehicle and was being transported quite a distance away. Otherwise, I don't think the pacemaker app would disconnect that easily. And so we know that from 2:28 a.m. onwards, Nancy's pacemaker remains out of range of the app on her phone. At this point, the family is still unaware that anything has happened, as far as we are aware, and for 9 more hours they would remain as such until someone from the
Hey
church
Mario, come on,
would get in
man.
contact with the family, talking about how
Jesus.
Nancy had not showed up for Bible study or the service, and Nancy was
think I need a
always
circle light or
at these
something
church
around me.
events. She never missed them, so this was a big
screen
deal
turns
for
black,
Nancy
the
not
whole
to have
screen
pulled
turns
up.
black.
And thankfully, she kept this schedule because it is the reason that we were aware relatively quickly that something was going on with her. And so the family goes in to check on Nancy at around 11:56 a.m. And we do know that about 12 minutes after that, the cops arrive at Nancy's house and the investigation begins. So now that we've done a little rundown off of that, things should probably be pretty wrong to you about this. Nothing quite makes sense about that story. For
There we
instance,
go.
the family dynamic is weird. Nancy, the 85-year-old mother of various children, is being shuttled via Uber to her family's house for a family dinner. You're supposed to honor and care for your mom and you're Ubering her there. You couldn't even bother to pick her up. I believe it was only a 20 or so minute drive. And clearly, if they're having a family
Oh,
dinner
shit.
at home, there is someone available to come and pick up Nancy. So it's odd that they chose to Uber her, especially considering that they drove her home anyway, so it wouldn't have been that much to pick her up. And I also think you should go out of the way for your mom. So right away, that just rubbed me the wrong way. It just doesn't compute for me, especially if the family is close enough to be doing these family dinners like they evidently are. Secondly, the fact that we can't confirm whether or not the son-in-law actually stayed and
Got the
watched
moon.
the grandma get into the garage is weird, but it's even weirder that he made her walk
Yeah, I'm
by
gonna need a
herself
circle light. Be
at
right back.
84 years old, all the way up her house, up her driveway, rocks,
that baby in
gravel,
somewhere.
stuff like that, to the garage. Why wouldn't you walk her up there and make sure she's all right? The dynamic, once again, doesn't make sense here either. It's like they don't care very much for this 84-year-old woman. Family dynamic in mind, what I also think is really strange about this initial story we've been told about Nancy is that I'm very much anti-doorbell cam. It's just a mass surveillance tool, and it's feeding all sorts of horrible things, but topic for another time. These sorts of neighborhoods, the higher end ones, tend to be filled with cameras, both doorbell cameras and other ones. So how did nobody pick up what went down? Multi-million-dollar home that Nancy's living in with her daughter, who's a pretty major figure on television, the combined net worth of her and her husband being like $40 million or something like that. They didn't bother to pay for a subscription so they could store the video footage for their mom. This is the same mom that they don't bother to walk to the garage, the same mom that they Uber instead of picking her up. It seems like a pattern is starting to
That's
form
better.
here. And we have 3 points
That's
of
better. Welcome in,
detail
people.
that
We're
suggest
just
the
chilling,
family dynamic
watching
might not be
videos
phenomenal.
on YouTube,
And what's even
playing video
stranger than
games,
talking
so
about Nancy's situation
might be a
is that
weird
we have a daughter
contrast
who
because I'm
lives
usually
nearby.
my
You would think
feed's
that
all
they'd be pretty
conspiracy
close. You know, you go
videos
in
and
check in
shit,
on
but
grandma, you see how
apparently
she's
there's this
doing,
one
see how
thing
Nancy's
about a
doing.
Madeline
And
McCain.
you
I have no
probably
fucking
think that
idea. I
you'd
wasn't
be on
following
her
this one,
doorbell
but
camera, so you know, oh, did someone deliver
something
a
about
package,
some
or
lady getting
how's grandma
kidnapped
doing?
that seems
You wanna make sure
fake
she
as
didn't
fuck,
fall
to
or
be
something
honest.
like
But
that. And yet, once again, if
it's
that
sus.
were the
It's
case,
very sus.
that would mean that these people would have gotten a notification that someone was outside of Nancy's house at 2 in the morning. And so I do find it strange that Nancy's kids weren't on her doorbell cam service, also getting notifications, just like we said, to make sure
Finally
she was
getting around to
all right.
playing this
And
game.
so
I
from
bought this
is
game
starting
like
to get the idea that the
3-4
family
months ago.
might be kind of
I'm like, I'll save it
being
for a stream,
inattentive
you
or
know?
not
I
going the
just
extra
started playing
mile
it
for
the
your
other
mom
week.
is not necessarily a crime.
We're getting a
but it is
Switch about
nonetheless
like
sad that
9 months
It
ago.
wasn't even her family who realized she was missing. That said, you want to argue that perhaps grandma didn't want them on the doorbell camera, although I find that hard to believe. But so I don't get off on a whole tangent, while we're on this idea of subscriptions, these pacemakers also have these applications which you have to sign up for and send you
Part of me wants to go
notifications.
over there.
I'm surprised that the daughter, who
Do a little
lives
boss
within a
fight,
short
but-
range of her mom, didn't insist on being
part of me
on
wants
this
to just-
app to get notifications about how the pacemaker is doing. That seems like a sort of critical thing to be on so you can help take care of your mom. I mean, if you're gonna have these apps, which have
Booyah.
all sorts of security issues, if you're gonna have them though, the whole point is so that
I
you
wanna
can
get those
be aware of your
coins.
health.
Probably
And
wait,
it
though.
would be logical for the daughter who's nearby to be aware of how her mom's pacemaker is doing in case she needs to take her in for a checkup or something like that. Had she been on this app, which we don't have proof she is or isn't, then you would have also gotten at 2 a.m. a notification
Should've got the coconut flavored
that your
drink.
mother was out of range
Not a
of her
coconut
phone,
guy, but here I
meaning
am
that
drinking something.
Something
That's
must
coconut.
be going on. And I really would like confirmation that the family either is
I
or
thought it
is
was like a
not
white
on this
cherry.
app.
I should've looked at
Because
the
if they
label.
are, and they got this notification at 2 something a.m. I would think that would
guys like
toss a
coconut
wrench in the story
flavored
further
shit?
as it's been told to us. Because that would mean the family had some idea something
reminds
was
me of, like,
going on.
tanning
Even if they didn't
lotion
see the
or something.
notification at 2 whatever a.m., they would have seen it earlier in the day and could have been like, oh, that is strange that
Okay,
the
you wanna
pacemaker
fight me,
got
dude?
disconnected. I wonder
He
wonder
looks
what's going
funny.
on there. We should give her a call.
Oh,
And
damn,
so
he's got
before
the
we continue,
fucking
very
Kung Lao
possible,
hat.
I will say.
Alright.
The family genuinely did not know.
Okay,
And they were not on
Kung
the
Lao hat over
notifications
here.
for their grandma, which would seem to me like
Go, bro.
further proof that there is a weird relationship
I'm gonna
dynamic
kick
going
your
on.
ass.
But at the very least, it would help me rest a little bit easier that they didn't have the chance of knowing way earlier than they claimed to have known, is how I'll put it. But until we have proof of
Aha,
that, I'm
how
not
about
gonna
that?
make any assertions either way.
Coming at
It
ya.
is worth putting that theory out there, though. But for now, let's pause on this topic and shift our gaze a bit to a different direction.
He's
of
hopping
this story.
mad.
We played clips of it earlier, the footage of the man outside, but I want to reiterate, this footage is not even supposed to exist. So let's play through the whole thing, and then I'm going to make some points.
Ow. Okay, that one hurt. Ah. Damn it. Try that again. Coming at ya. Is this a video of the kidnapping? Man, this feels staged.
At a 10,000-foot view, it kind of seems like the FBI
Oh,
did
no.
something useful in an investigation and acquired footage for us that otherwise might not have even existed, which is a big deal. However, when you start watching the footage again, and I'm going to keep it on screen off and on, you're going to start noticing something's off. First of all, the footage comes in 2 differently length segments. In both, we can see a weird figure with lots of glitter patches and what almost looks like a flashlight in their mouth
Pointing down.
and a face mask on. It's impossible to distinguish who
Adorable.
is behind the mask, and it's very difficult to
Oh,
even
he blew
distinguish
up.
the
Wow.
gender
Is he
of the
dead?
person behind the mask, whether it's a guy or a girl. At the same time, while watching this footage,
Mario
the
just killed
person
somebody.
also gives the vibe of both being
Do
professional
you know how it works?
as well as being terrible at what they do. For instance, the swagger's walking up to the camera, you've got the gloves tucked into the shirt, you seem to be completely covered, so there's no DNA samples that you could accidentally leave around. And then at the same time, you have this guy grabbing a bundle of plants and putting it over the camera to try and cover it. Like, what? Both of those things just don't go together for me. One half this guy shows there was a lot of planning with the outfit and making sure that it was impossible to distinguish who he was or she. And on the other hand, you have someone who apparently wasn't even aware that there was going to be a doorbell camera there. But strongest to me is something we mentioned. The footage is in 2 separate, differently length segments, meaning that there could possibly have been a cut. But more importantly, we're almost certain that there's a cut of some kind because the footage ends very abruptly,
No,
and
get it,
in
get it,
that
get it, get it,
ending,
get it, get it.
there's no
Yeah.
sign that whoever was outside the front door was actually the reason the footage ended.
Oh,
As
wow,
far
this
as I'm aware,
place
there's no way
looks
to shut off
fantastic
the
now
camera
that I
like this
fixed
from
it.
the outside unless you have access to the application, because it would sort of defeat the
swim
purpose
around.
if an assailant could just shut off your camera
little
from the
floaty.
outside. And so it is my going theory, having edited a lot of videos, obviously, that there is a cut that has happened here and we do not have the full footage. And then you
Zipper.
kind of have to ask yourself why that might be. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Which would then suggest that maybe the FBI is withholding something or hiding
Secret
something from
entrance.
us. For what reason, I don't know. But I never like it when the feds are hiding things. But the other thing worth pointing out about this footage is that we don't have the audio. And basically all these doorbell cameras, especially the higher end ones, tend to record audio and have been doing so for a long time. And so I want to really get this audio then, because this guy appears to be talking to himself or to someone else. And if that were the case, it would completely throw out the FBI narrative that this is a lone wolf abductor. And if this were a team, as we'll see later, it adds a much different perspective to this whole situation. We are aware that there are extra security precautions on Nancy's property, including what are speculated to be several other cameras, which even if they don't have necessarily the best angles, they might have picked up more audio and might give us more context. No matter what though, we should still have access to that footage. And now we're gonna focus more in on the security precautions of this place. I wanna narrow
that
in
homie
on
doing over
Nancy's
there?
front door. Might seem weird, but it is a big wooden door and it's locked shut. So I don't know how this guy was planning to get in there, especially how he's gonna get in there quietly without upsetting Nancy and or the neighborhood. On top of that, there's also a metal front gate in front of Nancy's door that adds another layer of protection, making it more difficult to get inside. Which, if you remember, we're talking about a guy
What?
who supposedly
I'm taller,
did
I
this whole
should win.
thing solo without a squad, was able to get through both of these doors and then get into this woman's
Gonna hold
house
her down.
unheard. Because if he wasn't unheard, Nancy could
Can I
have
talk to
easily
this
called
guy?
the cops
Oh,
in time and had them there before she was ever taken out of that house, and none of this would have happened. And so here's where the story is really going to begin to fall apart if it wasn't already. Because here I want to run you through a logic test. You are the burglar, the assailant. You're breaking into the home of an elderly woman. She lives in a higher end neighborhood. She has a security system. She has extra security precautions. Obviously, you've
the line
decided
in the
after
ground.
weeks of planning the best way to go about this is
I
to
see, like,
ensure that
little
you're not hurt
outliers
by
of fishes,
Nancy
but
on the inside
they under the
or anyone
sand
else
or what?
around you. So logically then, the front gate covering the door made out of steel, followed by the solid wooden door, might not be your best means
That's
of entry.
weird.
But according to the FBI and the one angle of footage that we have, that is the entry that he took. So we're gonna go with that and continue our thought exercise. You approach the front door and despite planning this for weeks are seemingly surprised based on the footage we have that there is a doorbell camera watching you. And of
I don't
all things,
understand
you've
it.
got to cover it with some shrubs. Continuing,
We
though
gotta
you've
pop
been
'em up.
planning this for weeks, you're at the door and you still, from all appearances, don't have any plan how you're
Cannonball.
going to break through said doors
That didn't work.
or get into them silently. And so you mill about for like a minute
time to go to the
almost,
next kingdom.
just from the footage we're aware of, acting shocked almost that there are doors you actually have to go through. Somehow, though, you have
Right.
managed to successfully get over all of these hurdles, and not just
Already
get
got
over
that.
them. You did so silently because no one has alerted the authorities, and no other cameras, to our knowledge, have picked you up. And so now you're inside the house, Nancy's asleep in her bedroom, and you realize, oh man, my weeks of preparation, I met with the final problem. How do I get Nancy out of this house? This is an 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker who can barely walk, who takes heart medication, like all old people, is prone to injury and is very fragile. And yeah, she's 150 pounds. And based on the bricks of the archway into Nancy's little area where the door is, you're likely
Found an
a
acorn.
little under 6 feet
Might need
tall.
that.
So now you are going to have to carry a 150-pound woman, probably in a fireman's carry, all the way out of her house while she's kicking and screaming and fighting, all the way out the sidewalk, over rocks, over gravel, possibly even some cactuses.
Get
'cause
away
there's a
from
garden.
me.
And then you're going to have to carry her over sand, then you have to carry her down the driveway, you're going to have to carry her maybe even down the road to wherever you parked the car, so we're talking hundreds, maybe even thousands of feet, while you have a woman who would likely be screaming and, like we said, kicking and fighting and yelling, begging for help on your shoulder. And you're wearing skin-tight clothes in Arizona. Yeah, that's not really making sense, is it? The logistics of this are beyond
Where I plant this
insane,
acorn.
because if he had parked in the driveway, there's no way we wouldn't have gotten an angle at his license plate. The only way we could have somehow not gotten this guy's license plate or figured out
that's
who he
new.
was immediately would be if he had managed to park the getaway vehicle further enough away that people didn't recognize it as the same such vehicle that he had used. Oh yeah, you were also wearing a ski mask and the most clear thieves outfit I've ever seen
Dive, dive,
in the
dive.
middle of a very wealthy Tucson neighborhood, covered in cameras, and no one at 2:30
That
a.m. in this
acorn down here,
neighborhood
did it go away?
heard this kicking, screaming, crying,
gone.
begging for help woman as
Son
you,
of a gun.
I presume, tossed her in the trunk and tied her up and drove her away. No one? Really? Do we really believe that? Because I certainly don't at this point. Not a single neighbor heard anything.
Lost the acorn,
Not
damn
a
it.
single neighbor's
That
camera
sucks.
caught anything. And indeed, we know that some level of force was
Well, let's
applied,
at
as
least
there
try to
were
get that
some
mowed.
relatively small bloodstains outside of the front door of Nancy's house. Who that belongs to, we're presuming Nancy. And so as we are thinking about this, it's starting to read more and more and sound more and more like this was an operation conducted by a team rather than a single guy who just happened to pick an
Barely.
old woman for no reason, as we're being told. And so this all in mind, if we were to look at this as though not a single individual, but rather perhaps a team had conducted this kidnapping, then we're going to start having to ask the obvious question of why Grandma Nancy? In all honesty, she seemingly has no material value to a thief, especially not the kind of value or knowledge or information that would warrant a pretty capable Spec Ops team of abducting her. Unless that is, she herself is not the
hey, that
mission,
thing's
but rather
gone.
she's a key to something larger. And Nancy is something of a pawn or a message that's going to be used. And in order to see what I mean by Nancy being a possible message, we need to look once again at her daughter, Savannah Guthrie, who, unlike Nancy, cannot have the same set of her in terms of not having any valuable information. As, like we said, she's the co-anchor for the Today Show, but more importantly than that,
that's great.
she was pretty deeply involved with the Epstein story for quite a while, and she's been attributed as one of the main people who brought this Epstein narrative into the public purview in terms of the mainstream slop type news channels. And most specifically, she conducted this interview with 5 Epstein victims in which they got to tell their story, which for many touched a lot of hearts. And on top of that, Savannah has a now notorious and famous clip where she's discussing with Trump what we now know to be the very real ring that's going on, and I think it's worth playing a few clips of it here for you now.
Let's go. Keep asking me these questions.
I do have one more to
let me just tell you, what I do hear about it is they are very strongly against pedophilia, and I agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that, and I agree
But
with
there's
it.
not a
Sure you do, buddy.
pedophile
I have
cult
no
being run
idea.
by-
I know
You
nothing
don't know
about
that? Okay.
No, I don't know
You
that.
just this
Yeah, what a
week.
liar.
Okay, just this week you
Why are you
retweeted.
asking me about Antifa?
Man, I just gotta say, I was editing this video and rewatching that clip, and I did not realize how hard that went. They were discussing Quanon because saying the real word can get a little spicy sometimes. And Savannah was going after Trump, trying to get him to disavow the idea that there was a satanic pedophile ring. And I find it ironic that now both of these people are referenced in the documents proving that that ring is very real. So that whole argument just takes a totally different direction now in my mind. That said, this does feel like a good time to introduce now the Epstein and Friends connections. So let's get into that. Now, this theory might sound crazy to some people, but I want to preface this by saying, if you think that at this point the effects of being connected with Epstein are over with, then I would have to disagree with you. And I think that if we were to ask Virginia Giuffre, who is probably the most prominent, or was one of the most prominent Epstein victims, she'd probably agree that Epstein's connections are continuous and long-reaching. And so surprisingly, many people have begun connecting dots here. And the reason we bring up Epstein is because the kidnapping occurs eerily close to something very important in the Epstein situation. Specifically, less than 2 days after the most recent Epstein files dropped is when Savannah Guthrie's mom disappears. And so we have the mother of the woman who went pushing this story to the normies going missing right after a file drop. Yeah, that is awkward timing at the very least, or suspicious timing from my perspective. And I mean, realistically, I don't know anyone who wouldn't find this at least odd. But it does continue. I think if we were to wager, there has been a growing claim online that NBC prevented Savannah from airing a larger and longer segment that got more into depth about the Epstein claims and more specifically people who might have been involved. And I can't attest to that either way. But I do think it's possible that Savannah might have had access to information that others were not privy to, and this information could have been very harmful to people who are now being pushed into the limelight because their names are in the files.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail.
Once again, I can't attest to that, but I do find it a very real possibility. And honestly, I do find all this to be a fairly compelling theory. But the one that I find more compelling is when you look into who Savannah Guthrie's husband is. And that would be a man named Michael Feldman. Michael is a consultant, a very high-powered one in fact, being a founding partner and managing director at the Glover Park Group, which is a public relations and communications company, as well as advocacy group that deals most often in left-leaning politics and politicians and cleaning up individuals or organizations' public images. But what's made Michael so intriguing to people lately is that his claim to fame is that he was Al Gore's traveling campaign manager, Al Gore being a whole character himself, but even more importantly, he was deeply involved with Bill Clinton, with Michael holding several different positions, high-ranking ones, in Bill Clinton's administration, helping maintain that guy's image, which was definitely a difficult job. Now right away, this should cause your ears to be humming. The wife had run-ins with some of Epstein's victims, and the husband is now all of a sudden found out to have close ties to Bill Clinton, someone who was very buddy-buddy with Epstein. That can't be right. After all, the Clintons were notoriously disgusting people, publicly speaking with the Lewinskys, but with the files and all the other sorts of stuff that's speculated about Bill Clinton, it's no shocker that this dude is pretty freaking evil by all accounts. With him making many trips via Epstein's plane to his island and to his other properties, engaging in these sorts of acts one never even wants to think about. We also know that Epstein visited with Clinton and likely even got into the White House. And as such, a man like Michael Feldman, who is basically in charge of making sure Bill Clinton doesn't look as terrible as he is going to, whether intentionally or not, have a very high probability of meeting Bill Clinton's close buddies and colleagues like an Epstein, meaning that Michael Feldman has the possibility of being in possession of documents and files from his Clinton days that could completely shift the entire public understanding of this case, corroborating the sorts of things that we believe to be happening that the FBI and other agencies are trying to cover up. After all, a PR agency is basically, especially in this industry, just the equivalent of toilet paper for wiping up the crap that people get into. So if anyone in my mind has dirt that isn't directly in the Epstein ring, it's gonna be a Michael Feldman, a guy like that who was in this organization unintentionally, hopefully, serving the purpose of covering up these degenerate acts with children and the other host of claims that are made, which is supremely strange. But I will take you one further. There's actually a reference in the files of someone emailing Jeffrey Epstein telling him to look into the Glover Park group and hiring them to help with his image and his rebuilding and the covering up of his misdeeds. Glover Park being the, yes, exact same company that Michael Feldman is managing director of and a founding partner of. Isn't that odd? Or maybe it really isn't odd at all, that's just how this works. And again, one further though, the Clintons for the past several months have been avoiding subpoenas and have been trying their best to not get involved in the political milieu around Epstein, and so far have done a good job. Until February 3rd, when everything seemingly shifted, and the Clintons came out and said that they are suddenly willing to testify in court and discuss Epstein and what they know. And that shift occurring seems very bizarre because the Clintons have nothing to gain and everything to lose in such a situation. So why would they do it? However, you might get the answer when you remember the date. February 3rd, they make this announcement. February 3rd being only 2 days after the abduction of Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy, from her home. And perhaps that would be the bargaining chip then that the Clintons needed to ensure that all that was going to happen in that congressional hearing was going to be that the Clintons would say, oh, we were friends with him at one point, then we stopped and we don't know anything. You could see a theory where the Clintons are holding Nancy over Bill Feldman and his wife Savannah as a sort of bargaining chip, as in stay silent and make sure the government does not know what you know. And most certainly do not let the American people know what you know.
See where I put that acorn
could be wacky, but when the government's trying to tell me a single dude carried out this whole crime,
get that acorn.
Anything sounds less wacky than that to me. I guess we'll see though on the 26th and the 27th when Hillary and Bill, in that order, go on to testify. This theory I think holds a ton of ground, and honestly it's pretty interesting. I'm curious to see how it evolves. However, it does
be real interested to see Hillary and Bill testify
around this whole thing.
They're gonna go kamikaze on this shit and take everybody down with them
to carry out a mission like the kidnapping of a grandmother in a suburban neighborhood without anyone hearing.
Out of my way.
Then my mind naturally jumps to
Fish are coming through.
Epstein
Fish are
and
coming
friends.
through.
Who would be the people connected to engage in this sort of activity? And if that is what happened, I can see why the FBI would not want that getting out, knowing their history of hiding facts, we'll say. It also would be a pretty terrible look for the FBI and the government if we now have rogue assets going on and ensuring that their name does not get harmed in all the information coming out by sending in their own extraction teams. And as such, the FBI might be inclined, for a whole host of reasons, to cover up the larger scheme of what's at play, which would then make sense why footage didn't come out for some 10-odd days after the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. 10 days is a very long time in an investigation, and it allows for someone to get anywhere on earth and have a cup of cocoa before anyone knows what happened to them. Even if that person is carrying an 84-year-old woman with them, presuming that woman is still alive, that is. Now, do I know that's what happened for sure, as in the squad? No, but it makes more sense in the prevailing narrative, that's for sure. But I will say it is mighty convenient that the granny kidnapping occurred during the same time of the Tucson Gem Show, which is the longest running show of its kind. They display gems there for sale and auction and all sorts of other things, and it garners about 60,000 or so people.
Usually I hate water levels in any game, but I don't mind this Water Kingdom too much.
The influx of other people attending and doesn't stand out very much because there are
now we wait or what?
We just wait already. And this gem show, I want to reiterate, has been going on since before and is continuing to go on now after the Guthrie abduction. The next thing worth discussing, now that I think we've pretty well and good proven that the narrative as it stands makes no sense, is the reaction to these events. Firstly, there have been a series of ransom notes that have come out, some of which are believed to possibly come from the abductor or abductors, but there has been little to no follow-up on that from the FBI or the police, with none of the ransom notes themselves being released in full. Furthermore, a lot of these ransom notes have come out to TMZ, and TMZ is the definition of slop, so we can't even confirm the authenticity of those. But the other issue with these ransom notes is that we do know one or two of them have been fully disproven, and one of the authors was arrested for creating these notes. But it did make headlines that these ransom notes were requesting $6 million in Bitcoin And then supposedly, according to TMZ, so take it, like I said, with a grain of salt, there was movement in one of these Bitcoin address wallets. The family, to their credit or discredit, depending on your interpretation, came out though and told the kidnapper that they would be willing to pay to have their grandma back. Furthermore, Michael, the hubby, has stayed out of the limelight. He has not appeared in any of the family videos as far as I'm aware. None of the ones asking for the return of their grandma safely, and nothing about the ransom notes
getting out of
either.
this damn
For him
kingdom.
to have remained completely out of this seems really odd and speaks of guilt in my mind, as if he knows something that he's not letting
Bored
on
of this
to.
water level.
That said, we are in a system where it's innocent until proven guilty.
Going somewhere
From where I
else.
stand, it is certainly not a good look. Although on the other hand, maybe he's making the right choice, because these videos themselves are also not a good look and come across as very strange. Let me play a couple for you here.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light.
But it is weird, and the brother in the background, deadpan staring, is not the look. The sister, who appears to not be doing much emotional anything, and Savannah in the center reading the family statement, it's hitting about as well as the Tyler Robinson story, which is not very good.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
Pedro's mom just got kidnapped, and he sounds like he's doing a bad ad read. Not to mention, he keeps looking down at the paper. Could we not have set the paper right here next to the camera so he didn't have to keep looking down the whole time? The whole video just feels off and definitely raises some alarms.
We received your message, and we understand.
God, this
We
looks
beg
like
you
bad
now
acting.
to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Out of all the videos, even compared to the Sounds of the Lambs one, this might actually be the strangest
Metro
of all.
Kingdom,
There's this
fuck
weird
yeah.
pause right from the beginning, and I'm gonna guess they might have done a countdown and just cut out the countdown and not this pause. But it makes it feel a little more
looks fun.
artificial. Still under the impression that the media
About
is
to
where this
hit the
ransom
city,
letters are
be
coming
a
from.
city
As
boy
we
now.
referenced, we already know at least one of them was fake. We have no confirmation in the public purview that any of them are real. So what are they basing this video on, and what are they asking for? And if they have confirmation and they haven't made it public to us, like we said, then maybe they should take this off of Instagram and stop doing the negotiations for everybody to see, because it's only causing more questions and I imagine more annoyance for everyone investigating this. So in this video, based on what the family is saying, it seems as though they've come to terms with the kidnapper and have some sort of agreement, because they're saying, now can you please return us our mother? As though they've had at least an exchange happening. And it makes it seem as though some sort of payment was made. That has not been made public if that's the case, if they've tried to pay somebody. After that, Savannah discusses the need to celebrate with their mother. I don't know what, because based on the way the sentence is spoken, it could be celebrate the return of mother, or something else entirely different. Or it could be something within this exchange that they're referencing that only the kidnappers in my opinion, and the family would know about. And noticeably, Savannah says in the video, this is very important to us, not our mom is very important to us. That this could be the piece, but also once again, it's one of those things where she said it in a way that we don't know exactly what she's referring to. It just seems off. So this is another example of why we need the context if this is going to be made public, because it's only going to make people more and more concerned about what's really going on. Maybe most confused is at the end of this video, Savannah discusses how we will pay. Like, we are willing to give money for our mom back, but the rest of the video made it seem like they'd already come to that conclusion. So what's happening? And has the payment been made? And who are they talking to?
She is full of kindness and knowledge. Talk to her and you'll see.
Catherine is very gentle and kind. Talk to her and you'll see.
Came with the other clip for most bizarre might actually be what someone uncovered when they listened to Nancy's speech. It must have just recognized them as being similar to a film, that film being The Sounds of the Lambs. What was noticed is that obviously the words are almost identical, but on top of that, so is the cadence. People speculate that she for whatever reason, might be referencing that. I've heard a theory that maybe the kidnapper.
Oh shit, it's
person,
Pimpin'
or the
Bowser.
kidnapper is
Pimpin'
requesting that they
Pimpin' in
act
this
out that
one.
scene. I don't know, because it's really meta when you start
It's
thinking about
Pimpin'
it. 'Cause
Pimpin'.
The Sounds of the Lambs in this case is the mother trying to get the daughter back from
I
a
should put this up
serial
here.
killer who had kidnapped her. And in the case of Savannah Guthrie, it's the daughter trying to get the mother back from someone who had just kidnapped her. So it's kind of mind-bending when you
I guess
really
the
start
bottom
looking
corner
into
is
it
probably
more
the
and more.
best.
Outside
case
the
of
family, the
action here.
FBI has been reacting, as they always do, by obfuscating the truth. By investigating, or so they say. For the most part, the reports I read from the FBI say that they have spent most
seems
of
like the
their time
best
running
place
around
to
the
put it.
house and the very small confines of that area, searching for clues, and other than that, not doing a whole lot. And it was only more recently that they started expanding their search and going to possible
So just make it a little
leads,
smaller.
which could be a good or a bad sign. And as we've iterated upon a couple of times, it took Kash Patel 10 days to release the footage of the assailant. Not exactly the most splendid FBI work here. But even strangers, there's an
Oh,
aerial
Kash
view of
Patel.
Nancy's home, and it's got some
He knows
people
how to
asking
do
questions.
stuff.
Number one, the pool is pristine. Who has been taking care of this thing? And why is it being so well taken care of? That could mean anything. That could be nothing, that could be something. But more importantly is, in one of
This
these
ain't the
aerial
Metro
shots, I
Kingdom.
presume taken from a news channel, you can see on the
Some
roof
cloud
a
shit.
female Fed climbing up a ladder, getting onto the roof and ripping something out that seems to be wired in. Based on the placement and the wiring, I believe it's a camera. And so now we have the Fed taking cameras, and I believe we mentioned a long
Pimpin' ass
time
suit,
ago,
though, not gonna lie.
we haven't gotten any other camera angles, so why aren't we having this angle as well? Where's the audio, and why are we
got no
ripping
time
them
for
out
you.
if there's no evidence on there?
I'm busy
And
planning
why,
my
if there's
wedding
evidence
day.
on there,
Oh,
do
he's
we not
having a
have it?
wedding?
What's going
You
on
didn't invite
here?
me?
We need to have all the info to make this
didn't invite
work.
Mario to your
Furthermore,
wedding, bro?
Nancy's house is beginning these
It's like
weird
your
random
best
searches.
frenemy, dude.
You have the FBI suddenly activating and
stressful
running
it
and
is?
searching a random
Very.
bush. You've also got guys dredging through what I think are
Put the
septic
goggles on.
tanks of some kind. When they start dredging through water and
Oh, that's
watery
why, 'cause he's
areas, it's
marrying
not
your
the sign they're
hoe.
looking for a living person, but rather
Your ex-hoe.
a body. But possibly strangest of all is that when you take this whole investigation
What?
at face value, it
Got
sort of seems
boxing
like
gloves
a
on your
job.
hat?
Because whatever they're doing is not
That's a weird one.
very serious, as someone was able to order a literal pizza to the front door of Nancy's house, and this pizza driver made it through all the taped off areas, all the cop cars, all the Fed cars, all the cops and the Feds outside. He was able to walk all the way up to the front door, knock on it, and wait
Yeah,
for
I got
someone
that
to pick it up.
glass.
At which point, eventually someone told him that he's at a crime scene, and the guy was like, oh man, yeah, that's
Punch ya.
some people. And then the pizza guy left. Weird exchange in and of itself, who knows what that guy
That'll
knows.
teach
It
ya.
also hints at a
That'll
lack
learn
of
ya.
care, maybe, from the FBI. I hope that's not the case, because I really do want Nancy to be found. But it definitely doesn't make me feel any better if this were my grandma, that's for sure. And the other thing about the investigation is it feels we're being slow-rolled a lot, like the 10 days to get the video footage, or just the information we have at this point is lacking. And same with the FBI. They've designated no
dick.
suspects, they have apparently no leads,
Coming at
and the
ya.
best they've shown for this whole investigation so far, the hundreds of thousands of dollars spent, which is likely going to become millions sooner or later, is that they went and arrested one guy. This one guy was a delivery driver of some kind who had maybe one time brought food to Nancy's house and then never came back to my knowledge. They went and arrested him and then eventually brought him back. And in an interview we'll play clip of it, basically says he doesn't know why he was arrested. He's never even met the woman as far as he knows. And the FBI didn't even bother to ask him any questions.
You don't watch the Today Show. So this is a complete shock.
What questions were they asking you?
How?
Nothing.
Dick?
They didn't ask me no questions. So nothing. They just sent me in the car. They investigated my car and this one, and that's it. They didn't ask me no questions. No.
Did you get the other car back? Or they still have it?
No, like that.
Oh, they gave it back to you. So,
Yeah, it's
and they
like
said you can go home?
Go down, bitch.
If this is all true, then one's got to ask if this is just a show at this point. And if the
Get back in your
FBI
ship.
knows what actually happened to Nancy,
You
it
big.
kind of reminds me of the Titan sub incident where we knew of the explosion in advance. It had been registered on a bunch of different seismographic things, and governments were aware of it, but they still continued the search for a couple of days to give the idea that they might be able to find the people alive, when in reality, they knew the sub had exploded at the bottom. Perhaps the government is already aware where Nancy is. I hope that's not the case, but it seems more and more like something else is going on. That all being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to comment doorbell camera L, so I know you made it to the end. Please keep Nancy in your prayers. Lord Jesus, please help Nancy to be found, safe and sound, but if not, then I ask that you hold on to her for all time, and you keep her with you, and you keep her family with you as well. Thanks so much, God. Amen. That'll being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I can't wait to see each and every one of you in the next one.
Donald Trump loves maps. And as US president, he gets to look at lots and lots of very cool maps. One day in 2018, he was looking at maps in Key West, Florida. These maps belonged to the Coast Guard, and they showed suspected smuggling vessels off the US coast.
Using the Pacific, using the Caribbean, using everything they could use to get through.
After he toured the naval station and looked at a submarine, he and his team headed back to Washington. Miles Taylor, a member of his team, has an anecdote that he says happened on board the plane.
I'm sitting there with Stephen Miller and a senior member of the Coast Guard.
This is Taylor speaking to the Left Hook with Wajahat Ali about a conversation he witnessed between Trump's senior advisor Stephen Miller and the head of the US Coast Guard about those boats on the big map.
And Miller's grilling us on whether we could launch drone strikes on these boats. I will never forget the Coast Guard commandant saying to Miller, "No, we can't do this. It would be a violation of international law."
Stephen Miller, he's a fucking crazy kook. He's a little bastard. Oh man, all this shit is just Epstein files after Epstein files on my YouTube page. But hey man, that's the story of the times. Oh, you know what? Yeah, let's run it back. You know, we've been getting into Isaac Happy lately. I'm gonna run it back for Trevor Moore, another one that was probably taken out by the people.
Did you know that it's illegal to say I want to kill the president of the United States of America?
I love a good
kind of like
Trevor
public
Moore. Why
service.
just can't
I'm
you know?
letting you know so that you
Great
don't
ass show.
accidentally go out and say something like that.
I want to be an astronaut.
Oh, you want to be an astronaut? Maybe someday you could be the first astronaut to walk on the moon.
There already was an astronaut who first walked on the moon.
Well, no, not really. That wasn't real. You see, President Bush was in a secret society at Yale called the Skull and Bones.
President Bush worships Satan?
In my personal opinion, absolutely.
Hi, we're the Illuminati. Hi. Yeah, but before you can do a special on a major cable network, we're going to need you to sign some things.
Great. You'll also need to pledge your soul to Baphomet.
Okay.
We'll also need to film you in a lewd act with A minor.
Now, could I self-tape that, or is that something that you'd want me to shoot here?
We're going to need a side note in your own handwriting, just in case things get crazy.
Trevor, we're all looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, me too.
This guy knew it.
In 2005, an intern of one of Tom Hanks's agents made fun of him at a Hollywood party. The intern was fired, and his agents begged Tom to stay, asking what they would have to do to prove they were still loyal. He said, Heath Ledger.
We're sorry, but you at the top all have to.
Yo, sup sobers? In the early 1950s, Frank Olson was a biochemist and bacteriologist for the U.S. Army Special Operations Unit. He was stationed in Fort Detrick in Maryland. What he really mainly focused on was biochemical warfare.
It's like we
Why
crash
he was
landed,
focusing
huh?
on this is because we were in the heart and the thick of the Cold War, and the imminent threat of a
Guess we're not on
possible
Metro
war
Kingdom,
or
we're
nuclear
somewhere else now.
incident was ever present. Tensions were super high. The work and the research they were doing was all going into trying to protect our nation and be able to ward off any possible attacks from this other superpower. At the same time, in the early 1950s, a secret project was started up by the CIA. And this project, I'm sure most of you know about it, is called MK Ultra. If you're not familiar with MK Ultra, this is a secret mind control operation that was kept extraordinarily secret within the CIA. And their main goal was to try and turn normal, average soldiers into these super soldier killing assassins. They use all kinds of different synthetic compounds, including different drugs, hypnosis, and all kinds of different things to try and control people's minds.
That's super not cool.
More so, it was directed at trying to get them to lose any of their inhibitions and to adopt this nihilistic point of view to where they don't really know who they are, they don't care who they are, they're just driven by whatever their mission is. Essentially creating these super secret, identityless assassins. The one thing I think about every time I think about that is how many of the people we find in all these shootings and assassination attempts who just have no background at all. They're not on social media. They disappeared after like 9 years and were never to be seen from or heard from again until they pop up in the news. It kind of reminds me of this whole MK Ultra project. These secret assassins who don't have an identity. Their only identity is to be an assassin for the CIA. I guess a couple more recent examples would be Luigi Mangione, for one. There's a brief dark period where he was just kind of MIA and not existent until he shows up on national television accused of taking out Brian Thompson. Another such instance would be the Sandy Hook shooter. This guy also just had no background. He kind of disappeared off the map and nobody could really figure out what's this dude's story. But it's so hard when they literally have no documented past. But this MK Ultra project is not just some made-up theory that people speculate happened. Through the Freedom of Information Act, we've been given these documents, and we know that this was an actual project, this was an actual operation that did exist and did happen. And thanks to multiple whistleblowers, we know a lot more about what the project was doing and some of the truth behind it, and it's honestly kind of scary. Because of the massive overlap between what MK Ultra was focusing on and the biochemical warfare that Frank Olson was working on, they felt like he would be a perfect person to integrate onto their team and to start working on different biochemical warfare and different biochemical ways to essentially control people's minds. Over the course of his time with the MK Ultra project, he said that he witnessed multiple casualties from different experiments, including animals as well as
I figured that was gonna hurt.
And this is just something that not only shocked him, but traumatized him to the point where he was not on board with what was going on. But things for Olson would take a super dark and final turn on November 19th of 1953. He was attending a meeting, which was kind of like a retreat, went from the 18th through the 20th of November, and at dinner on the 19th, Sidney Gottlieb, who was one of the CIA officials there, he's also the head of the MK Ultra project, decided that he was going to put lysergic doses in everybody's drinks unknowingly. Halfway through dinner, a lot of these guys start freaking out, wondering what is going on right now, like what is happening. And for most of them, they hadn't ever tried this stuff, so this was a brand new experience. Gottlieb says that the main reason he did this was because he wanted to know who on his team, in his secret team on this MK Ultra project, would be vulnerable if they ever got somehow hypnotized or dosed themselves. Unfortunately for Olson, he seemed to be the weakest link. Following this experience, Olson suffered a mental breakdown. He realized that he hated his job and he needed to get out of it, and he confided in his friends and family about some of the things that were going on and just how terrible the experience was for him. He had fallen into a deep depression, he was not himself anymore, and he was completely traumatized from this surprise dosing that he got. And rightfully so. I mean, that's something you really got to be mentally prepared to go into. And he wasn't. Olson had then confided in some of his colleagues and people within the program that he really wasn't doing well after this whole experience. He was talking to some of his colleagues, and eventually it got back up to Gottlieb that, hey, maybe we need to get you some sort of medical psychiatric help. But they're not just going to set him up with some random psychiatrist. They set him up with the
Didn't realize how much this
psychiatrist
guy
that works
helped.
within the MK Ultra project. They say
Lost
that'll
my
allow him to
superpowers,
talk
Mario.
freely, but really it's just to make sure that the secret stays safe. This doctor's name was Dr. Harold
I guess I could've
Abramson.
jumped,
After
like,
doing an
long jumped it.
evaluation with Olson, he came to the conclusion that he suffered from essentially psychosis and delirium, and he had all these, I don't know, just negative effects of this lysergic trip that he took. Based on this evaluation, they decided that it would probably be best for him to be admitted to a psychiatric ward so that he can heal himself and get the treatment that he needs. For whatever reason, Olson agrees to this. They take him back to the hotel because they're staying in New York. He's actually living in Maryland. And while they're at this hotel, the next plan is for him to then move on to this psychiatric facility. But he never makes it to that facility. That night, November 28th, 1953, while staying in the Statler
Get away
Hotel
from
in
me.
Manhattan, in a room completely guarded by other CIA agents, at about 2:30 a.m. I want you to remember that time, 2:30 a.m. He dove through a glass window, plummeting nearly 100 feet from the 10th story of this hotel. Of course, plummeting all the way to his ultimate demise. Olson's family has always been suspicious of the CIA and their involvement in what happened. In fact, his son was so distraught over this mystery that he decided in 1994 to exhume his father's body and have another autopsy done. And this autopsy concluded that he had head trauma that occurred before his fall. There was a subdermal hematoma, which can really only occur if you're still alive. But unfortunately, because the Olson family had already settled after being talked to by President Gerald Ford in a private meeting, giving his personal condolences for what happened, and then subsequently offering them $750,000 to settle instead of continuing to sue the CIA over a wrongful death, they reluctantly took the money. But that would make it so that no future cases could ever come about, no future suings of the CIA could ever happen. And though they never admitted to actually doing this or carrying this out themselves or being responsible for this, they did claim negligence, saying that they could have done more to help him. And that's why they decided to settle. Olson was threatening to leave the CIA. He was threatening to leave the MK Ultra project. He was a huge loose end, and loose ends always need tied up. And if you're interested in hearing more about Frank Olson, we'll talk about him a little bit more in this episode. But there's actually a docudrama series, I'm not sure on what platform, but it's called Wormwood, and it goes through the whole Frank Olson saga and his family's never-ending search for the truth.
I remember I watched that
because
shit.
They truly believe that the CIA was involved. But the only thing I could think of when I was
get up there,
listening
man.
to this story and looking into Frank Olson was Liam Payne, Isaac Cappy, and Trevor Moore. And if you haven't seen my
that right
Liam
there?
Payne episode or my Isaac Cappy episode, then I'll throw some cards up right here. I highly
There you
recommend you
go.
check those out. Very interesting. But what do all four of these guys have in common? Well, all four of these guys allegedly jumped to their ultimate demise.
Yep.
One of the other huge red flags of a similarity between these guys was the limited information and the amount of 404 unfound pages. Sorry, just you're out of luck, dude. Kind of links that I found in each one of these stories. Especially when it comes to Trevor Moore. Like, there's literally nothing out there. Very, very basic news reports citing all the same
Well, you
general
know people got to show
information,
more.
all regurgitating the same mainstream narrative. But after digging a bit deeper, I was finally able to find some stuff, and I was just like,
Little bastard. Grab his ass. What a jerk.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Sobering Stories with me, DJ Petrovsky. If this is your first time here, I highly recommend hitting that subscribe button.
Oh.
I post every Friday,
Damn it.
and that way you won't miss any future episodes. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the love. We've got another question-filled episode today, and I guess we just wanted to start things off by doing a couple business items. So business item number one, the lights are white today, which I rarely ever do that because I don't like white lights, but it's for the whitest kid you know. so I figured it made sense. But I got a lot of comments last week with my whole setup change, talking about how people hate red and they wanted different colors. So my brother and I were talking, and we figured it'd be a good idea for me to open up like a, I don't know if you'd call it like a contest or like just a thing that I'm gonna do. But every week I'm gonna let you guys comment what you think the color of the background should be. And I guess maybe majority will win. I don't know. If you have advice on what I should do, let me know. But I think that's how I'm gonna do it. Usually I just try and look up the person I'm talking about's favorite color and go with that, or a color that makes me think of them and go with that. But we change it every week. So the only one I can't really do is like brown, which I think would be really sick, but I can't do that. So yeah, anyways, drop it in the comments what color next week should be. I've gotten lilac, lavender, and I've gotten, that's actually it. That's all I've gotten. But people just hated the red. Business item number 2, I just wanted to personally thank each and every one of you guys for supporting the channel each and every week, watching my videos, and just boosting this channel up to where it is now. It's such a surreal experience seeing my channel meet these goals that I've had for so long. And just recently, I passed the 1.1 million views mark. If you think about it, 6 months ago, I was struggling to hit 1,000 views with all of my videos. So the growth has been crazy. It's been exponential, and I'm super grateful for that. But even more than that, I love the community that has developed with this channel. All of you guys offer such amazing perspective. You guys present me with information I'd never heard of or don't know. You guys present me with topic ideas. And even more than that, you guys pick up on some things in my videos that even I didn't see. So I love that. And I love just the community around this channel is phenomenal. But to say that this is a surreal experience would be an understatement. I mean, my channel is being shared on other channels in the comments. People are directing people to my channel, talking about my content in a positive light. I couldn't have expected this to all be happening
guy does good work.
So fast. And that's all thanks to you guys. And that kind of directly leads us into business item number 3, which is going to be the sponsor for the week. And the sponsor for the week is actually going to be TikTok. Now, most of you guys probably know that I actually hate TikTok. But if it weren't for TikTok, I would not be here today. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be doing any sort of social media content creation, nothing. TikTok really is where I got started. My girl told me that I could start making money by doing affiliate marketing on there. I made some cool friends on TikTok that also did the affiliate marketing thing. I was super stoked about it. I was like, I can make side cash online. This is cool, on TikTok even. And I always felt like I could come up with these funny advertisements or like product descriptions to get people to buy them.
Now ladies, if you're looking for the perfect gift this year, I found it. It's the men's True All heating pad for men. Take it from me.
I just launched that thing into the stratosphere?
I wouldn't use this thing if I didn't 100% trust it and believe in it and put my entire life on it.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland. You take the blue pill, the story ends.
Damn it, why did I just jump off like that?
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch, go.
Oh, you didn't tell me you were looking for a plug. Yo, I got the plug. I'll plug you in right now. I know a guy. Yeah, my plug, he only speaks Spanish though. I got 4 outlets, 4 for the plugs and 2 for the loads.
Oh, my plug? Yeah, he slings watts.
You see that? My plug's lit. Yo, my plug, he can supply so much. My plug, he is the supply.
Yeah, man, he's moving kilos of watts like every day. That's what I'm saying, man, like a year. So if you need a plug, man, yo, hit me up, click my link.
And so I just focused really hard on, comedic uses of these different products and making videos. And I got so successful that I was getting so many products to make videos for that I couldn't even keep up. I had a whole corner of my house just dedicated to the free stuff that I was getting. Though it was great, it was just a bunch of junk that I didn't really need or want, and I wasn't making a ton of money on it, but I was getting a lot of free stuff. But I did finally make, let's see if you can even see this, I made $30 with my first TikTok payment from doing affiliate marketing. And Kim framed this for me because she's like, this is the start of something bigger. Like, I just feel it, and I wanted to commemorate this. And so this was just like a little gift she got me, and I cried when she gave it to me. Whoops. Making money online was a huge motivator for me. And I kept grinding, I kept posting videos, trying to make more and more money. And I think by the end of my TikTok days, I had made maybe like $450 over the course of like a solid year doing affiliate marketing. So it wasn't very fruitful. It was maybe a side hustle, and it took up all of my time. Eventually, TikTok, as most of you guys know, has these crazy violations and rules, and they will literally give you a violation for anything. I got a violation for the most wholesome video of me and my son organizing change into a change organizer thing and counting out the different coins and seeing what they were called. The product I was marketing was a change organizer.
Just got one of these awesome little change coin holders for my car, so when I go down to court, I can pay the meters.
Alright, let's get to the Trevor Moore shit, dude.
This one?
You only get 24.
Homie, let's go.
TikTok.
There, skip ahead. There we go.
I hate you still. You got me where I needed to go. So thank you.
Yeah,
and you
TikTok
guys can
sucks.
support the sponsor if you want. If you don't, I don't care. Now, I know that was a lot of business items for today, but let's go ahead and get down to the nitty-gritty. Trevor Paul Moore was born on April 4th, 1980 in Montclair, New Jersey. His parents were Mickey and Becky Moore. They were Christian folk rockers, and they had a band called the Moore Family. Because his parents were actually really popular in the Christian rock scene, he was always on tour. He said from the time he was born until 12 years old, he was constantly on the road touring with his family. Having changed 5 different schools from the age of 0 to 12, he probably was the outsider most of the time. And it's said this is where he developed his outsider humor, and he also seemed to find solace in his comic book writing. He was already amazingly creative and coming up with these comic book ideas, and he was actually the youngest cartoonist ever at the age of 12 years old with his comic book that he wrote, Scraps. After traveling for so long, his family finally settled down in Virginia, and he attended the Covenant High School in Charlottesville. After graduating high school, Trevor went to the Virginia Commonwealth University, where he was a broadcasting major. He was trying to study political science and journalism. He ended up detouring and wanted to go more into film instead. So he transferred to the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan, and he actually graduated there with a BFA, and he graduated cum laude, which means that he did really good. From 1997 to 1998, Trevor actually had his own show on public television, and it was called The Trevor Moore Show, and he did some really funny skits and kind of sketches. And one of the things he did that I thought was particularly hilarious was he did this fake news broadcast where they would go to this old folks home that was nearby, and they would talk about who died today, the setting and what they're talking about. That's just hilarious to me. And also, I'm sure these people really cared, because it's probably people that they grew up with, grew up loving, people that they're concerned about, or like, you know, whatever. And the show lasted for 16 episodes, eventually was taken off, but it just was a great start to what would end up being Trevor Moore's amazing comedy career. During his last year of college, he was actually accepted into an internship working with Saturday Night Live. That's pretty crazy. It's kind of a big deal. He was only supposed to be there for like 6 months on this internship, but they loved him so much and they loved his comedic style that they asked him to stick around, and he became a coveted member of the NBC Page program. And this program accepts 50,000 plus applicants a year, but only 50 people are chosen for it. So yeah, kind of a big deal. After about a year in this program, Trevor was then released into the wild on his own, and he says he attributes a lot of his comedic style and success to what he learned from Lorne Michaels in that program. So it's really cool he had that experience. But in 2004, he reconnected.
I feel like I need a demodulator if I'm going to be
Zach
honest.
Kreger and Sam Brown.
A demodulator?
Start up this kind of live
Yeah, is that what it's called?
sketch show,
The one that like
and they
changes
start
your voice and
performing
shit?
regularly at this bar called Piano. Here's just a little fun
what is
fact
that
for
called?
you guys, because I know you love fun facts. The way that they met Timmy from
I
the
don't know.
show, The Whitest Kid You Know, was on September
Why do you want
11th,
to sound like
2001, when
whiter?
the towers were collapsing. They were running around trying to find a bedroom, and they kind of just barged into this guy's apartment who was watching it. And
I'm
that
watching
guy
the episode on Trevor
from
Moore,
that moment
Whitest
forward,
Kids
they
You
all
Know,
just
so you might have to
clicked. They
sound
were all
whiter.
best homies,
You used to
and
watch that
they
show at all?
invited him in on this whole Whitest Kid You Know sketch crew that they were starting.
The Whitest Kid You Know? No. I did see clips of it because obviously the Miss March duo, right? Or the people that made Miss March made that show. So I watched clips of it, but I wasn't like a fan of it.
It was hard to like watch it on a certain TV shows because it was like not really on.
They ended up winning Best Sketch Crew.
Not really on like normal channels, you know. It was on like Comedy Central or shit, but it felt like a raunchier version of like Mad TV.
They were approached
I loved
by
it.
Comedy
I thought it was really good.
Sundance,
I just watched it on the
all these
YouTube
major
most of the
networks,
time.
But by the time
This is a documentary, like a YouTube video on Trevor Moore, because he would always like
the name The Whitest Kid You Know is because
he'd always like sugarcoat little references to like the Illuminati and like conspiracy theories in like his sketch
After
comedy.
signing this contract with Fuse, they would go on to make their first season of the show.
It's kind of weird timing because I mean I already seen this one. I felt like watching it again because I saw something on Instagram where he made like a sketch parody of like a Justin Bieber type kid singing a song, and like the chorus is like, "Somebody help me, my parents signed me off," and shit. Being like, and now I'm just owned by the industry. All this like crazy shit. It was so funny.
And
But yeah, he was on his shit, and he's dead now. Like he fell.
They're gonna put limitations on
just
our
like Isaac Cappy, he
art,
fell
our
off
humor, our
a
comedy,
2-story.
And we'll just move to a different network.
Balcony
so
or something like
season 2,
that.
They announced that they were going to be moving to
They said he was
IFC,
drunk
the independent film company,
and just
Honestly,
landed
I think it was a
perfectly
better
on his
move
neck.
for them because they were able to truly make their
I don't know,
videos
man.
without
I don't know.
any sort of limitation.
Sus. It
The show
seemed
would
very
last for
sus.
5 seasons, and in 2011 they would do their final season. Honestly, that show was so funny.
He had so many good
To this
sketches,
day,
though,
one
man.
of my favorite shows. Still quote tons of things from that show. And if you haven't seen it,
One of my favorite sketches was, you know, the guy who produced the music for Star Wars, John Williams.
And they have their own YouTube channels.
He kind of did like a day in the life of John Williams.
They're just
and like he's like sitting there in the shower going, just thinking of things like what to compose with, right? And he's like in the bed just just like constantly doing that all day. And then his wife gets like sick of it. She's like, I'm fucking sick of you doing all that shit. It's just It's like, no, it is not like that. It is not like that. I'm an artist. And then they had like a music or compose off in front of the kids.
He plays Daryl in the
Yeah, I think I've seen that. I think I've seen that. 1 second, I'm turning the heat off.
So funny. It's about
No
Zach
worries.
Kreger, and he's about to lose his virginity to his
It
girlfriend.
was so fucking funny.
And he falls and goes into a coma for a really long time. And when he comes out of his coma, he's trying to find his ex-girlfriend that he had, and he finds out that she is Miss March in the
Oh, this is the Miss March
Playboy
you're talking
magazine.
about.
So they go on this road trip trying to find her so that he can finally have sex with her. But it's such a funny movie. Literally so funny. Horstick.mpeg is probably my favorite part. They also went on to make another movie called The Civil War on Drugs, which is another hilarious movie.
Civil
And all
War
of
on
these
Drugs.
films, they have different social commentaries. Of course, their humor is sarcastic and dark and off the walls and typically crosses the line. And that's what I think most people love about these guys, is that they are willing to cross the line and say things that you don't normally hear. It's super authentic, super real.
I remember another skit. They were just
Now,
like
throughout this
in
journey,
an office
Trevor
meeting.
had been obviously introduced
It's so
to
random.
alcohol
They're just like in
at
an
a
office
fairly
meeting
young
talking, you know,
Pretty much when he
normal
was in
office
high
shit,
school, he
and
started
one of the guys is
experimenting
like,
with alcohol and different drugs, and then obviously
takes
with
he
the
just
success
goes
of The Whitest Kid You
like he
Know
just
and the
looks like he's
success
got a
of
shit,
Saturday
and then he
Night
just
Live stuff,
pulls out a
he was
turd
introduced, I'm
out of
sure,
his
to different
ass.
substances, and I'm sure
And then
he
he just
started
like
using
they're
them
just
more
like,
as well.
don't get straight
By
away
the
from
time
the
The
because
Whitest
they're
Kid
just
You
being
Know came
distracted
out,
up until
he
that
was
point. So the
definitely
boss is just like
in
really
more of a
mad
party
about
mode,
everybody getting
and his
distracted, and
drinking was
everybody's like going,
certainly
"What the
starting to
fuck? Why did you just
And
pull a
after
turd out of
the
your
Whitest
ass?"
Kid You Know
And he's like,
ended,
"Don't get
this
distracted.
is when
Nobody
things
leaves."
really started to
Like,
take
he
a
just
turn
pulled
for him,
shit out
at
of
least
his
in my
pants.
opinion, in
It's
terms
like
of
it doesn't
his
matter.
addiction issues.
We gotta get
It sounds
past.
like
We gotta
he
get through this
was
meeting.
full-on
So the guy
drinking
literally just has
regularly,
shit in his hand,
he was
and
talking
he's like
about
starts
things
nodding
like
off,
coming up with his own
and he like
stills,
finally nods
moonshine in
off,
his
and like the
house.
shit
He was a
goes
heavy
into his
drinker,
face.
So I mean,
And he's just
not-
like,
not much
"Oh,
else to
ew,
say, but I
gross."
think by this point, he was
Everybody gets like
definitely
super
fully
freaked out from it. It was
engulfed in at
just
least
stupid
an
shit like
alcohol
that.
addiction. There's a lot of themes that come about, like
I
the
just love it, like
super
it's
sizing
got a
of whiskey.
spectrum. Like you can
That
get like
video is
stupid, ridiculous
absolutely
shit, and then like
hilarious.
really
My name
funny,
is
witty
Trevor
stuff.
Moore. I am doing
And
a
then you got his
documentary
like
on
sneak
whether or
in
not
the
it's,
coded
healthy to drink
Illuminati
nothing but
shit.
whiskey for 30 days.
My girlfriend
Like, you
wants
get a little
me
bit of
to quit
everything
the
with that show.
experiment because she's worried about
the effects the whiskey may be having on my body.
It kind of showcases, I think, there's some truth to some of the things that he's doing in these videos. And then he also comes out with a musical, like, comedy album, kind of like Weird Al style, and it's called Drunk Text to Myself.
God damn it.
So yet again, just like this drunk
That
theme,
post is still blowing up, Pine. It's at like
obviously a
1,400
prevalent thing in
likes.
his life. He also went on to release another
That's
album,
awesome.
very similar style,
Crazy.
both of which are super hilarious and
I
have
got
some
like
very interesting songs
all the
in there.
conspiracy
But
theorists
album
in the
was called
comments
High in
fighting with
Church,
each other. It's
and
fucking
he's got some
great.
really, really interesting videos in there, which I will show you now.
It's
At
pretty
least
nuts.
clips
They
of
got what, 500 comments. It's got sent to people 8,000 times. Almost 2,000 retweets. It's hard to keep up with all the fucking comments. Though. I'm trying to like keep the algorithm going by like liking their comments and shit. But I also don't want to get sucked into these fights. They're not all fighting, but most of them are just like, oh shit, RIP. I didn't know about this, but. Some people are just at each other's throats.
Most of the guys after the Whitest Kid You Know show,
He's kind of a controversial figure. I was watching some of his live streams.
Doing smaller roles, doing
he was definitely heavily in the
things
QAnon
like
shit.
But they all started their own podcasts, and
which
their
I
own
feel like
little
they
live
were
stream
kind of
stuff
onto
on
something,
Twitch.
but then they
And
got
some
it
of them
totally
were really
wrong where they
funny,
thought
just
Trump
them
was going to
chatting
be
and talking
the
about
great
random
savior.
stuff, or they're playing games
And
on
I
different
could tell by
ones.
some of the
But
comment
the most
section they
notable
still believe
ones
that shit.
I
It's like,
watched,
oh
or that
god,
are,
you
like,
still
more
believe?
mainstream, I'd say,
He's gonna save
are
us.
Newsboys
He's
and
actively
the
making shit worse out
Self-Suck
here, man.
Saturdays. But Trevor would also go on to have his own, talk show on Comedy Central called The Trevor Moore
It got
Show,
me like
which was
200, 300 new
absolutely
followers.
hilarious. Honestly, I love that show. Him and
I just
Blair
never
are just hilarious.
gotten to
and the
that
guests
point
they bring
where
on
a
are always
post
so
actually went
interesting. They always bring
semi-viral.
on somebody that they
It's
don't
still not
understand
technically
much
viral,
about,
you know.
And usually it's something I
You
don't
see like the shit in your
understand much
feed.
about as well.
Your normal
Super
feed gets
interesting
like
stuff.
50,000
But
likes.
love that show
all the time.
And just continuing on with
I
Trevor
wonder what that
Moore's
looks like on
off the
people's
wall,
like
crossing the line
people
type
who
of
post
humor.
it like their
But
channel.
despite Trevor's
They're just so used to it that they
after
don't
the
even
Whitest Kid You Know,
have
he would
notifications
actually
on
go
anymore.
on to do a lot of other things. And a couple of those things were working with the Disney Channel. He came up with a couple of shows. One's called Walk the Prank. And Walk the Prank was basically kids pulling pranks
I didn't even know you were on
unsuspecting
YouTube.
victims with hidden cameras, just funny stuff. And the other one's called Just Roll With It. Kind of like a Saturday Night
Oh, what do you
Live
mean
for
on
kids,
the stream?
where it was improv. These kids would do these different scenes and improv.
Are you on
the whole
YouTube
thing.
and Twitch?
And midway through a scene, they would poll the audience
Yeah.
and say,
Yep.
like, of these three
I'm dual
choices,
streaming.
what should we do
Oh, cool.
next?
I use
And then that would
Restream
guide
now.
the next direction for
I
the
guess it's
improv
free
scene.
to
cool.
So
do
kind of some
one
cool
extra channel.
ideas,
I thought I
and
was
think it's
paying
very
for like a
interesting that
subscription and I
Trevor
was trying to
ended up
like
going to
unsubscribe to
Disney,
it,
of
but
all places.
I realized I
Throughout all
wasn't
of these
paying
different
anything for it.
projects,
So I was like, all
Trevor
right,
was
shit.
consistently crossing the line.
I'll just keep
And
that
not just
going.
a little bit, like a lot. Not just him.
I
The
think
entire
it's
Whitest
cost money
Kid You
to
Know crew
add more channels,
was
but
crossing the line on a regular basis.
at this point,
if you think
it's
about
the only
some of
two
the skits
channels
that
I
they
want to be
did,
on.
like
I was
talking
thinking
about
about
words
streaming on
that you
TikTok, but
shouldn't
I've
say.
kind of like
It's
fucked
illegal.
TikTok
It's
now.
a federal offense.
Since
It's
Larry
one of
Ellison
the
bought
only
that shit.
sentences that you're not allowed to say.
It's
One
co-opted.
thing that
and I
is
don't wanna
technically
fucking-
legal to say
I
is
don't
that
like
we have a
TikTok
group
to
that
be
meets
honest.
Friday
I was
at
just
midnight
playing
under
ball with
prohibition,
every,
passed with 6 Semper
keeping up
Tyrannis.
with the
When
Joneses.
Trevor goes into a classroom
fucking hate
and
TikTok.
explains 9/11 and basically
Brain
how
rot.
Bush
You
is
can
a
just
member
tell
of the
that the
Skull
only
and
thing they
Bones to
promote are
kids.
like stupid
Take a look at
shit.
this wreckage. See how there's no plane parts
Or like
on the ground there?
it's always a fucking ad
What
for
does that look
something.
like?
Like only sellers and
President Bush was in a secret
idiots like that
society
shit.
at Yale called the Skull and Bones. His dad was too, and they all worship Satan.
And then the other episode where he
I'm
actually explains
watch your
how to
stream
cook
and then come right back if you're still streaming. I gotta help Ryan with that draft thing tonight.
Okay.
Another draft thing. So I'll be right back. Bobby in
Well,
the
I'll just
stream.
be chilling.
Oh, and we can't
No worries.
forget his songs Kitty
All right.
History. And probably my favorite one, Help Me.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Which basically
Help me,
is just the
my
saga of
parents
Justin
sold
Bieber
me,
and many
big
other young
producer.
artists, which we've covered many of them on my channel. His Tom Hanks is an Asshole song, which that one was particularly interesting to me.
In 1994, Tom Hanks once pretended to be mentally handicapped for 6 straight weeks. Tom Hanks read the script over the weekend and called his manager first thing Monday morning, telling them that he'd do the film because it was the funniest thing he'd ever read, asking what they would have to do to prove they were still loyal. He said kill Heath Ledger.
And there's quite a few people out there that would claim that one of their last sketches where they expose the Illuminati and do a sketch about it and about Trevor signing in with the Illuminati, that's quite possibly one of the most risque ones that they've done. But throughout all of these different sketches and songs and crossings of the line, you would imagine Trevor has basically put a target on his back. And not just from one group. Literally every single facet of music, entertainment, politics, these secret societies, pretty much anything he has talked about or tried to expose through his comedy. Makes you wonder, like, how many enemies does this guy truly have? It's probably a lot. But Trevor didn't stop there. He was also super active on Twitter. He would tweet all kinds of wild things. There was one tweet where he talks about Tom Hanks and basically promotes his song. Then he also says, like, oh, don't sue me, Tom Hanks. He's actually a really nice guy. And you can imagine he's saying that likely sarcastically. He has another tweet.
I wonder if Tom Hanks got him too.
W. Bush is the oldest living president.
Tom Hanks took out Isaac Happy and Trevor Moore, dude. That's my theory. And now I might be next on the list.
He has a couple of tweets where he talks about
all this shit about him.
The Roblox Discord that he was in. And then he has another one talking about how he just red-pilled everybody at Sur La Table. I mean, if you know, you know, but that's kind of interesting, especially that he's going around posting it. And one of the tweets that has people all over the internet really speculating is this tweet about him basically calling out Project Monarch. And if you're not familiar with Project Monarch, essentially MK Ultra ended in the 70s. But what they really think happened is that they just renamed the program to something else and then reclassified it so it's secret again.
Well, that's definitely what they did.
That is called Project Monarch. Essentially continuing
MK Ultra
on
just
with these
changed
MK
forms.
Ultra studies. And this tweet that he's talking about is saying, like, what if they figured out how to use trauma to control people? And that's why we have all these national traumatic catastrophes. They're just using it as subtle ways to eventually brainwash you or mind control you. So, I mean, kind of a pretty big deal, especially for a secret government program that they don't want people knowing about. So, kind of a big deal for him to be tweeting that with the platform that he has.
This game's
but I think
full
the
of secrets.
And wildest, craziest thing that he posted was on July 28th, 2021, about 10 days prior to when he would be considered no longer with us. And this post says that he has one of the hottest takes ever, and he keeps wanting to put in the encryption code and basically launch this nuclear missile that he has, but he says the groundhog didn't see his shadow, basically saying he doesn't think that people are ready for this. It makes you wonder, what kind of information or hot take does he have that he was trying to expose? Now, real quick, I just want to divert a little bit and just remind you guys of how many similarities we now have between Isaac Cappy and Trevor Moore.
Yeah,
Isaac Cappy was very outspoken. He was very big on making Twitter posts, online posts, doing postering periscopes and podcasts. He's best known for his, episode with Alex Jones exposing the whole pedo network. He has a lot of similarities with Trevor in how outspoken he is with the platform he has, because both of them were in the entertainment industry, and I was honestly really surprised that the two of them never crossed paths. And I was honestly really surprised I didn't find any posts from Trevor about Isaac Cappy, but they were focused on slightly different
What the fuck
things.
was that?
But they both talked
He
about
had the
MK
files,
Ultra
maybe.
stuff. They also both trash talked Tom Hanks. Like, pretty
Cheers.
seriously.
What's up,
And they
Hank?
both made
MK
some
Ultra
serious
has its
allegations
wave
about
in
him.
like that.
And
In
I
like
looked
what?
into some of the allegations
2019,
from
2021?
Trevor Moore's song.
Oh, MK Ultra
Tom
was
Hanks
like
is an asshole. Some of those things are actually
50s,
true. I
I'm
was
pretty
able to
sure.
find them on the internet. He actually did.
But it's probably got a
get
new
made
name
fun
now.
of by some intern that worked
We don't
for
even know
his,
the name of it now.
one of his agents, and because of that,
I mean,
he
it could be
decided
Project
that he was gonna
Monarch, like
leave
you
this
said, but
agency. So they
who knows
fired
what it could
the
be now?
intern and tried really hard to win Tom Hanks back.
But I think
And they
that's
did,
what all these,
only
like,
because they fired this intern.
all those big
Another
mass
person
shooters
who
and
was
shit,
fired
I
because
think
of
they're
Tom
all
Hanks was Connor
subjects
Ratcliffe,
of
who was actually
whatever
working on
project
the
it's
set
called
of a
now.
movie with Tom, and Tom
It's
was
like
the
all these
director,
people seem to
and
have
he
no
literally
background.
kept cutting
In a
his
world where
lines
everybody's
and
like
cutting his
got their
scenes,
entire
and
lives on the
eventually they
internet,
decided to just fire
at
him and
least a
let him go.
Facebook page,
And
you know
it
what I mean?
was
At the
so
very
traumatizing
least.
for him that he actually went and
You're
started
telling me
a
that like
podcast,
all these
and the reason that they said
guys
they
that commit
fired him was
such
because
mass
he had
atrocities
dead eyes.
don't even have a fucking
And so the name of his
Twitter?
podcast, when he finally started his podcast up,
Not
was
even a
called Dead Eyes.
MySpace?
And it basically chronicled his whole experience with Tom Hanks and getting fired. and then he would have different guests on and talk about different stuff. But eventually, Tom Hanks would actually go onto this podcast.
Keep falling off. What the hell am I doing?
Even remembering that this happened.
He could have the files.
Such a traumatic, life-altering experience for Connor, which is kind of wild. So it seems like if you double-cross Tom Hanks, he will make sure that you pay the price.
Don't fuck with Tom Hanks. Apparently,
on August 6th of
who'd have thought he's
Trevor
one of the
and
most
Zach
evil men in
Prager
history.
Sit down. They're gonna do a Newsboys podcast.
Damn it!
Episode number 30. And I think it was the last episode for season 2, or maybe
they were calling
first
MK Ultra the
episode of
freezing
season 2.
joint back
But
then.
anyways, they
Shaq,
were sitting
Wendy
down
Williams,
to just chat and
all
hang
them
out,
freeze on
and
air.
they honestly just talk about whatever.
Or what's that? Al Roker too.
Wants to talk about.
You ever seen that? He's
and
just
then they
like,
talk about
but they
random
must have set a code
and
word
I
because he was
watched
just like,
this last podcast episode. And I was looking for clues or anything hidden.
it's like some
or
sleeper
any
cell shit.
signs that maybe Trevor
Where the guy who
was
killed John Lennon,
overly drunk,
he was an MK Ultra puppet or
talking
something,
about
dude.
weird things,
Because
giving
what he
cryptic
did
hints that
apparently
something
was
might
like,
happen,
he
but
took
it
that
was
Catcher in the
completely
Rye book with
normal.
him,
Trevor did not
shot
seem
him,
super drunk.
said he had no
was drinking,
recollection
though. He was
recollection
drinking
of doing
White
it,
Claws the whole time.
and then he just
But
like
he wasn't,
sat
like,
there on the
pounding him.
corner,
He
like
was
on the
just,
curb,
sitting
just
on him
staring into
casually
nothing.
Over the course
Like,
of
how
a 2-hour
weird is that?
episode. During the episode,
Can't tell me
Trevor
he wasn't
mentions that
brainwashed.
his wife was out doing karaoke with some friends, and that he
And
was at
apparently,
home
what
on
we
daddy
know
duty,
on MK Ultra
and
is kind of like the
August
Epstein files.
was asleep
There was
in
like,
bed.
what
The
we
episode
got
would
out of
finish
MK
up
Ultra
at
was
about
like
10
10% of the
o'clock. Now,
actual
what happens between 10
documented
PM
stuff that
after
was,
the podcast and
you know,
2:30
written out.
AM is where things get a little murky.
Yeah, Al
Nobody
Roker.
else was in the house besides his
So
son.
we're
August.
all the
He's
stuff
3
that
at
all
the
the knowledge
time,
we have
so
in MK
he's
Ultra
asleep.
wasn't even
There's
scratching
really
the
no other
surface
information
of
that
what
we
they
know
actually
about
had
what
or
happened
what they actually found
after
out about
10
that shit.
PM. The next
If they
report
did the
or
studies
any
for that long,
information at all that
dude,
we get about this situation
you know they were onto
comes
something.
at 2:39 a.m.
Just
when
like
police
how
are
they're
called
very
by
interested in
his
like
wife, who finally returns
astral
home after doing
projection and
karaoke, and she
remote
finds his
viewing.
body on their
They've been
back
studying that
patio
shit for
and
way
he's
too long to make
unresponsive.
me not
After
believe
doing
that
an
there's
initial
some
investigation,
credibility to that shit.
Police are able to come up with
Kinda scares me.
nothing. Basically, they're deferring to an autopsy report to give us actual findings about what happened and what the cause of death was.
And Wendy
how
Williams, though,
Trevor
she's-
ended up unalived on his back
she's
patio
definitely,
when he was just seen in good
she needs to be
spirits,
studied.
not even 4 hours prior. After 2
poor
months
woman.
of waiting for this autopsy to come back and some actual results and some answers, finally the police come out and say that
Did they try to
have
do, like, a
an understanding and an
conservatorship
idea
with
of
her
what happened, and then
recently?
they tell us that
I think
it
that's
was
what that's
ruled
called
an
when, like,
accidental death because
try to sign
the
off your
blood
bank
alcohol
accounts to somebody
content
else.
of 0.27.
Just kinda
Other
control
reports
you.
say 0.25. Another
you
report
need to
said
do it like this.
0.31.
Yeah, there we go.
So we don't really know how high it was. And we
That's
don't
a
know
lot
where
easier.
they're getting these facts. But he had a high BAC level, and he must have fallen from this balcony of his home. And I've got some pictures of his house, and we'll go through that here in just a minute. But I wanted to focus on the fact
Yeah, I
that
don't believe
they
Trevor
then
Moore just
said
fell.
There was a video, like a security camera video from a
Highly
nearby
doubt it.
neighbor or security camera somewhere. And this video says that it clearly shows, that Trevor intentionally leapt down onto the patio, like under his own free
Intentionally
will,
did it?
Intentionally jumped. And it uses the word jump.
They didn't even say it was
which
an
is very
accident?
specific. So of course they released this video.
Stranger,
and
all these
released the
people just
autopsy
intentionally
report,
jump off the
prove all these
bridge and
different
jump
facts, right?
off
No,
their
they didn't
balconies.
release anything. Literally not a single thing, other than these unofficial reports that are coming from
So
TMZ
weird.
and
Yeah,
supposedly got
TMZ,
this
yeah, trust them.
information after the coroner's report.
Not a single
was
report
final.
besides the
When they
one
reached
that
out for
says
comment
it was
from the
totally an
coroner,
intentional thing.
no response. So, what's going on here? I'm getting cover-up vibes, and they
That's
have to
cover-up
know
vibes.
that if they don't say anything, then the lack of information is going to lead to nothing but speculation. And it also screams that they're trying to hide something if they're not letting any information out. Not even a clip of
Her
him
health
jumping
declined
the
dramatically.
way he
Yeah, it did.
But one of the first things I
I
wanted
watched
to
her
do
like
was
faint
go
on
through
TV that one
pictures
time.
of Trevor's house,
That was like kind of scary, dude.
because,
She like
well, number one, it's super sick house.
eyes got all big and
Super
shit.
sick. But I wanted to figure out how likely is this story, and like there's no pictures, there's no.
And I was never a
anything
fan of Wendy
available,
Williams,
so I kind
but
of had to dig and figure all this out on my own.
still
But I found
feel
some
for
really
her
cool
and her
pictures of his
declining
house,
health.
and I was also able to find
And whatever
from
the
his
hell's going
Finder
on with
account
her.
that he did actually
As far
own
as
this
like
house
who's
until
trying to take over
2022 when
that
they sold
that
it. Well, I guess when his
her
wife
bank
sold it.
account and shit.
And so now it has new owners.
And user.
but This is like a $2.5 million house in the Franklin County area. which
What's
is
in
pretty
here?
much in Los Angeles. Super nice area, super nice house, and one of the wild things that I noticed was
Shaq's a Freemason. I remember that. He
are pretty
admitted
high.
it.
In fact, they even have like a little bit of an elevation
on
at the
TV.
bottom
They
to
asked
make
him
them
like,
even higher. and most railings are going to be at
They asked him what his
42 inches,
ring was
depending on the height of everything
next
in
to
the
his
house,
NBA
how
championship
premium
ring. He's
things
like,
are. It could be
you
as
don't
high
want to know
as 5
about that.
feet. So the
You don't
railings
know about that.
themselves, if you ask me, based on these pictures, they look like they're closer to the 5-foot range. I mean, they're taller than the table. They're certainly taller than most of the other things around. And it comes down to about half the door size. And usually doors are like, 6'8", but Trevor was 6'6". So fitting through a door that's 6'8" was not going to be easy. And this is a premium luxury home in California. So
at least that's a
the
secret
doorways are
society
probably
that's not
taller.
racist,
I'd
apparently.
imagine closer to 7 or 8 feet.
Because most
If
of
the
these like
ceiling is
secret
10
societies
feet,
seem to be like
you
old
can
racist
imagine that
white
the
dudes, right?
doorway, if we're measuring it, we're getting at least a 4.5, almost 5 feet for these railings.
So I guess they got that going for 'em.
6'6", that's pretty high up. It's not likely that he's going to accidentally tip over the side. To go further with that, to jump over this thing is going to be really difficult. You're going to have to leap, do the whole hand on the railing thing. It just made me wonder, like, if
I
there's
gotta turn this
video
up a little bit.
proving that he intentionally leapt over this railing, then where was he trying to go?
I'll turn up the
What was
YouTube
his
video a little
intentions?
bit.
It's super late in the evening, and he doesn't have anybody else there. He's not like trying to impress anybody or like be crazy. And basically the reports just say that he was so inebriated that he just made this really dumb decision, and that's what ended up happening. So I was like, okay, well, what would he be jumping to? So we look at these pictures of his back patio area,
That's
and a lot of the
sketch.
reports say that he was found in his backyard, making it sound like he had a yard to kind of fall into, but he didn't. He had a patio, and then he had this like gazebo thing covered with some viney plants. My interpretation of how high he was and the trajectory he would have had to go, he would have ended up in those vines. So I'm not really sure, but it just didn't seem like enough space, and it also didn't seem like there was anything for him to be jumping down to. Like, what was he doing? Some people online claim that he was trying to jump down to the second floor because he was locked out of that third floor balcony.
Apparently
But, I
he
mean,
like had
how'd
like
he
a
get up there in the first
moonshine.
place if he was locked
He was
out?
like trying to make his own
It's got these
moonshine and shit. So like
giant
I
sliding
guess he
glass
could be
doors
really
that open
drunk,
up
but
fully. I highly doubt he was locked out.
I
They would
highly
say
doubt
something
he was
more
that
specific,
drunk.
like, yeah, he was trying to climb down to the second story and fell, and that's what happened. But no, they just say that he jumped. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that
Just
the lack of
jumped?
information just fuels so
Doubt
many
it, dude.
questions. The other thing about that report was how they didn't release the autopsy or the coroner's
So
report
sus.
or any of the toxicology stuff to prove that he really did have that level of intoxication, because that's really high. And I talked about this in an episode, I don't remember which one, but one of my previous episodes, the different alcohol levels that can get you to different places. So 0.35 is considered no longer with us. You've alcohol poisoned yourself all the way to the end. 0.25, that's what they consider to be either passing out, like falling asleep, or blacking out, where you're still up and moving, but you're not quite there consciously. 1.5 is usually about the
Suspicious
normal drunkenness
big
level.
black cube.
So for him to be at a 0.27 or a 0.31, that would make him pretty drunk, to the point where he was likely blacked out. I know as a previous drinker who drank a lot, I could get a higher BAC and handle it better because I was used to drinking more, had a higher tolerance. So the amount of alcohol in my blood was certainly higher, but my ability to handle it was also higher. So I would hit 0.25, 0.3 sometimes, I'm sure, on a regular basis. But I also blacked out a lot. And I can remember when I got my DUI, after falling asleep for 3 hours in my car, I was woken up by the police and then not breathalyzed for another like maybe hour or two after that. And I still blew a 1.75. So, I mean, I'm sure I was at that 0.25-ish mark, and I was still coherent enough to be like, I can't drive, that's for sure. So I don't know. The level of alcohol in his system is kind of a mystery. And then, like I said before, there's all these different reports about
sus.
what the actual BAC was. But we'll never know because it's not been released and we can't fact check it for ourselves. We just have to accept what they tell us. Now, I mentioned this before, but Trevor likely made a lot of enemies with all of the different people he was consistently
maybe he was
calling
the
out.
Illuminati
I wanted to take us
sacrifice
back
for
to Frank Olson's story
his
for a
friend
little
to get
bit, because
higher up
during
in
the
the
same year that Frank
directing
Olson was
career
involved
that he
in
has.
this
One
whole
of the guys
fall
in
from
Wise
his
Kids, you
hotel,
know, is like a
the
director
CIA
now.
actually was
He made the
writing up
Weapons
this
movie, if you know that
manual
movie.
called The Assassin's
Some
Manual.
people were
It was
theorizing that,
published
but
in
that came out
1953, the
years
same
after
year
Trevor
that
died,
everything
so I don't
happened
know.
to Frank. And
Not too
this
sure about
manual has some pretty interesting
I'm not gonna
stuff
put stock in
contained
that
within
theory.
it. It's a proven CIA document. It was released through the
Oh, there
Freedom
we
of
go.
Information Act. And in this manual, it essentially talks about different methods, different ways of taking someone out and how to get away with it. This excerpt right here was very interesting to me because it talks about the best way to take someone out and make it look like an accident, make it look like it had nothing to do with anything else, and to minimize the amount of investigation and questions into what happened. The best way to do it is to have someone fall from a height of 75 feet or higher, because they're not going to question it. They'll assume it was either a self-exit or they just had an accident. And then they go even further to talk about if the person
75
has
feet
issues
though,
with
he didn't
alcohol,
fall 75
then that
feet.
can be something you can use to play
Heard of it, but never seen it. It's actually a pretty good movie, to be honest. But it's basically like about a witch
supposedly
who
that
takes
night,
over a
Trevor
whole
had
town
tons
with
of
like
alcohol
some
bottles around
almost like
and was
MK Ultra
super
like
drunk.
abilities.
Now, he wasn't super drunk
And like
4
it's
hours prior to that.
the whole
on
town to
his
like
podcast.
gaslight.
I would say he was definitely drinking, but
people
if
into
he
like
was feeling
murdering
any
people
buzz,
for
you couldn't
it's
tell
like
at
a
all. He wasn't slurring.
she
He was
does it with like
coherent, he was
witchcraft or
funny,
whatever, but like
he was keeping up with the
it's
conversation.
pretty nuts.
There was nothing hinting at the fact that he might be overly intoxicated, and I'm sure maybe he was just keeping it together for
it
the
like
live
it felt
stream,
like
and
it
then
was
maybe
being like
afterwards he went
it was almost
crazy.
like,
and if he did,
you know, like
actually
meta or
have
whatever,
this
like telling
moonshine
the story
still
like
at his house,
like
he
what we
said
were
he
just
did,
talking about, like
maybe
the
he was drinking
Luigi
some moonshine, which
Mangions
is
or
extremely strong.
the people
So
that
the
just go out
possibility
and
is
just
there.
randomly
And the
kill
likelihood that he
a
just got
person
too
just
drunk
out of the
and
blue.
just decided to
becomes,
make this final
you know, you
leap.
never
I
hear
don't know,
about these
it's
people kind of
possible,
thing.
but it certainly doesn't make
Like
any
they were
sense,
under some kind
any
of spell,
logical sense.
doing
And
it
the
for
thing
somebody
that really
else.
holds me up is the secrecy of everything. But you've got a CIA document explaining the best way to take someone out and make it look like an accident. And this is from 1953, right before they
That's
used
pretty
this
crazy
very
that
technique
CIA has a
to take
document
out
like
Frank
that.
Olson, who was a loose end. But that's not all. They go further to say that the best way to do it is to fall 75 plus feet onto a hard surface. But they also give other options that might work if that's not an option. They say pushing someone over into water is not the best option. But if you're pushing someone over into water that's moving or flowing, that could be a good option, especially because it could be considered some sort of freak accident. Maybe they were out doing some fun, adventurous canoeing or something like that, and then they had an accident and ended up drowning. And I want to bring your attention now to another story. I want to briefly talk about William Colby, who was the CIA director from 1973 until 1976. Once he got out, he was big on exposing tons of MK Ultra secrets and essentially outing the entire program and what really was going on. Surprise, surprise, in 1996, and supposedly is going on a canoeing trip. After 9 days of him not returning from that trip, his body's found in the river and they find his canoe as well. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. The suspicions around this are huge, and it is just another instance of where this manual seems to be pointing to exactly how they take these people out. And don't even get me started on the release of the JFK files and all the CIA involvement in that. Honestly, to think about the CIA not being involved would be a little silly, especially when you consider that Trevor Moore openly called out the CIA and George Bush in his Kitty history video. And with all these similarities between all these different guys, it made me wonder if knowing something about MK Ultra or speaking out about MK Ultra or really speaking out against the CIA at all, this might be like a calling card or like a signature of the CIA to have them fall from a height above 75 feet. I don't know. I was just thinking about it. It just seemed like a pattern, and honestly, it just made me think of it. So I wanted to share that with you guys.
Damn, I thought that
We've
worked.
talked about how Trevor outed Tom Hanks. We've talked about his beef with the CIA. We've talked about how he exposed George Bush, 9/11, and the Illuminati. But one of the things I really wanted to focus on was his Help Me video that he made in 2013. And this video is unmistakably a parody about
Somebody
what
help
happened
me.
to
My
Justin
parents
Bieber
sold
and
me
likely many
to
other
record
young
company.
artists in the music industry. And I would say that it's almost explicitly calling out people like Diddy and any other major music moguls and production companies and production executives that are out taking advantage of these young, hopeful stars and then making them do things that they will forever regret. And I wish I could play this whole video, but with it being Comedy Central and licensed stuff, I just can't. So I can play a clip, but I'll link the video in the description because you should definitely
watch that full video.
All of it, and listen to the lyrics very seriously. Honestly, you should listen to most of his albums because a lot of the songs are like this. I'll do the same thing with Kitty History because Kitty History was probably the most provocative video that he made ever, in my opinion.
That's a good one too.
So with all of these different enemies and all of these different possible people who would have wanted Trevor Moore to no longer be here, it's not too far-fetched to think that one of them or all of them conspired to make this happen. Especially with his history of drinking and alcoholism, it would make him an easy target. So I think no matter how you slice it, having an alcohol addiction certainly contributed to what ultimately happened to him. Either he was too drunk and a freak accident happened, or he was really drunk and opened himself up to people taking advantage of him and being able to sneak in and really not being as attentive or aware of his surroundings. It makes him an easy target. One of the other theories that I came across online that kind of broke my heart because, well, I love the Whitest Kids You Know crew. A lot of people speculate that Zach Kreger, who went on to become a monumental horror film director starting in 2022, he really got his start because maybe he made some sort of agreement with some sort of occult network to get rid of Trevor so that they would be out of his shadow for good and allow him to step into the role of director and start making these horror movies. And the first movie he made was called Barbarian, huge success. And then they brought him back to make another
directed Barbarian?
movie.
That was a good-ass movie.
With each film, his financial situation continues to improve. The first one, it said that he got a $10 million pay plus 10% of any of the initial box office sales. And then with his next movie, he got 20% of any box office sales plus $20 million. So a lot of people speculate that Zach Kreger's career took off right after Trevor Moore died because he might have had something to do with it. And I mean, I think that's true for all the guys from The Whitest Kids You Know. They all seem to be living in Trevor's shadow. It was always Trevor Moore and the guys from The Whitest Kids You Know. So I could totally understand how they were feeling like they were stuck living in his shadow, always having to be involved with whatever projects he was doing. That way they could maintain their financial situation and keep moving forward since Whitest Kids You Know was no longer going on. And I didn't really think anything of it until I found out that Zach Kreger's uncle, William B. Taylor Jr., was the ambassador to Ukraine for the United States from 2006 until 2009. He continued to be a diplomat with Ukraine all the way up until 2020.
Captain is missing.
And then after that, he transitioned it into a new role where he focuses on, I don't know,
Bitch-ass
trying to make peace with other nations.
Bitch-ass up.
And one of those nations that he works with directly
Get these
is
hands,
Russia.
Toad.
And because he's kind of been on both sides, he's been a huge piece of trying to negotiate peace between the two, and he's also been key to understanding the dynamics between the two.
Damn it.
And he helps our political leaders understand what we should be doing in order to help the best.
I mean, fly back?
This guy's tied to Ukraine, Russia, and our government. This guy's security clearance is way higher than mine. Couple that with all this CIA stuff, he probably had some ties to people in the CIA. I would almost 100% guarantee that. So it makes you wonder, maybe Zach did have something to do with it. Maybe he was sick and tired of living under Trevor's shadow and decided, we've got to do something about this.
That'd be a pretty scummy friend thing to do.
Zach Kreger lives 6 minutes away from Trevor's house. So very close, in the same neighborhood pretty much. So he wasn't that far away. So it could have been him, or he could have been able to go over and scope the place out to help anybody try and infiltrate the house.
What is the secret you're seeking?
I
know it.
He knew his kid was asleep.
I can tell you, but I'll give you a clue. Enjoying the view of Forgotten Isle.
He knew he wasn't going to be doing
It's hiding
anything,
somewhere. No peeking. Go find it.
He had the most knowledge about what was going on inside that house with Trevor. I don't know. It definitely made me think a lot. But the real kicker in this whole thing was the post that the Whitest Kids You Know made right after Trevor died, talking about how he died trying to suck himself off. And then they go even further to say that the autopsy report showed that he had a white sticky substance in his throat, meaning he died happy because obviously he was successful.
So I'm surprised no one's been asking, but people want to know more details of how Trevor died. I guess Sam will get into it, right?
Yeah.
You want to go first?
I mean, it's tough. We've been talking about this. It's kind of like, we all know the name of the stream and everything like that, but Trevor had been...
I mean, it was a mission of his life.
Yeah.
And he
was attempting to suck his own dick. Yeah. And he'd been... You told me this. I didn't know about this, but...
he was going to go to Mexico to have a rib removed, but I guess he couldn't wait. And the good news is the coroner said that the cause of death was actually that he asphyxiated on his own jizz. So he pulled it off. He did it. He got there. Guys.
And there was a moment where they said he died with a smile on his face.
So, and technically it was Saturday morning, so it was a self-suck Saturday.
Tough saying a joke about your friends with the
Someone
guy.
in chat said he came and went.
Oh, who said that?
Just seemed, number one, horribly insensitive. Number two, I could honestly see these guys joking around about the situation because that's just the nature of their humor. It's very dark and it's very, like I said, crosses the line. And so it's not uncommon for them to make these jokes, but with Timmy and Darren looking so uncomfortable in the bottom two squares, and Sam and Zach just seeming over the moon happy in this moment, it just seemed kind of weird. Not the reaction I would have expected. Zach certainly seems all smiles in the whole thing. His movie's coming out, everything seems to be going really well. Likely that's all due to whatever deal he might have made with Hollywood. And it's not like Zach was this amazing director. I mean, the only two films he directed were both with Trevor Moore, and both films didn't really perform that well. Miss March and The Civil War on Drugs. So, I don't know. How did he suddenly become this amazingly sought-after horror movie producer who's working with people like Justin Long? It just seems a little fishy. And I just wanted to leave you guys with one last little piece of information. Something that just really made me think a little bit more about the situation. It popped up a whole lot more questions. But if we think about the Isaac Cappy story I talked about, if we think about the Liam Payne story I talked about, if we think about this Frank Olson situation that we talked about and started the episode with, and now Trevor, all of these guys were running from someone and then proceeded to jump. Isaac Cappy was apparently being chased down by two people on the bridge, supposedly trying to help him, before he decided to, make the leap. Liam Payne, there's reports that came out after the episode that I did that talk about how he was seemingly trying to get away from somebody. He had a bag over his shoulder and he was trying to get out of his room, and it seemed like he was trying to escape and get away from somebody. Frank Olson,
I think I need to watch that one
he
now.
literally dove through a window 10 stories up. If he wasn't running from somebody or getting tossed out that window, then I don't understand at all what he was doing at 2:30 a.m., just like Trevor Moore, jumping out of this window. And finally, Trevor Moore. Supposedly there's some video footage of him choosing to make the jump. If that's the case, I'd love to see this footage to see
where's the
maybe
video
he was running
proof of
away
that
from
shit?
somebody. Maybe there was somebody threatening him from one side and he thought his best option was to try and jump. I'm not really sure. It definitely makes you wonder. I think it's kind of weird that they confirmed that he made the jump himself and have video of it, because if they're not going to release the video, it probably would be better for them to not have said that. I don't know, that's just me. But I want to know what you guys think, because this one is such a mystery. This one made my head spin because I just wanted to find answers, and I kept coming up with dead end after dead end. And I was left very frustrated that I couldn't find very good, valuable information to bring to you guys this week. But I feel like the information that I found does give us a little bit more insight into certain possibilities. Drop it in the comments. Let me know what your theory is. Let me know if I
think
missed
I'm over
something.
this place.
And as
Well, there's
always,
still one more
show
damn
some love.
moon.
But if you can't get enough
I don't know how to
sobering
get that
stories,
freaking
and you're just
moon out of
truly
that
enjoying
cage,
the
though.
monotone sound of my voice, then I recommend you check out my Sobering Stories playlist. It's got every single episode that I've ever done. I'm going to leave my Hung playlist in here. Talks about everybody that's found themselves at the end of their rope. And then I'm going to leave a subscribe button at the top. And look, I know you haven't subscribed yet, but I'm telling you, you're going to want to subscribe, okay? Once you subscribe, this whole thing
Power
that
this
we've
bad
got
boy
going
back
on,
up.
we can make it official.
Get outta
and
here.
every single Friday, we can make it a date. So go ahead, subscribe. It'll be up here in the top corner. Otherwise, if you don't like making decisions and you have commitment issues, then YouTube's got you right here. Just choose that one and it'll take you on a journey. So, and Trevor Moore was truly a hero to me. Him and Isaac Cappy were both super outspoken, and just, I love the way that they presented what they talked about. They incorporated humor and music and really found a way to bring it to a wider audience and try to make these things known, these things that are happening behind closed doors and in this dark underbelly of the entertainment and political world. I don't know. Very interesting case. Super sad that Trevor's gone. Literally super sad about Trevor. One of the craziest things that I discovered in all my research was how many people were like, whoa, I'm just finding out about this. I had no idea this happened. When did he die? What happened? Oh my gosh. And the reason for that is because everything's been kept so secret. So nobody knew that he passed. If it wasn't for my brother being so up to date on something.
This batch of pink cocaine was recently seized by the Martin County Sheriff's Office. It was reportedly found in One Direction singer Liam Payne's system after his recent death.
It's a deadly cocktail is what it is, and you know, it's not surprising that
Never seen that in my
he died
life.
as a result of this.
The Martin County Sheriff says the name is misleading.
There is no cocaine in this mixture. It's a combination of various hallucinogenics like MDMA, ketamine, and others. Every single batch will have a different grouping of drugs, different amounts. It's only a matter of time before fentanyl shows up.
Sheriff Flowers says Narcan can't reverse the effects.
It's not going to reverse the effects of MDMA. It's not going to reverse the effects of meth. It's only going to work on those opioids.
I hope that nobody listening to this is tempted to use it. Listen to me. It's dangerous. You have no idea.
But it's a lot of fun.
Or however you take it,
Don't use it, though.
Risking your life.
According to a complaint filed earlier this year by producer Rodney Lil Rod Jones, Combs' employees were mandated to carry pink cocaine, as well as regular cocaine, ecstasy, marijuana, and GHB. We know what that is. It was important to defendant, ex-chief of staff Christina Coram, to have Mr. Combs' substance of choice immediately ready when he asks for it. Allegedly, Combs would take these substances himself and distribute them to his high-profile guests. Subsobers, just doing some light reading here about Sean Diddy Combs and what he was doing with pink cocaine. Because as we know, about a month ago, I talked about an interesting story about Macy Marie Lathers, gorgeous Instagram model, just moved down to the Miami area, got herself involved with pink cocaine, and ended up unaliving 2 people. She was just a short, 10-minute drive from Sean Diddy Combs' Miami mansion down there in Florida. The likelihood that they're connected is pretty high. And not only that, but she was kind of intermingling herself with the lifestyles of the rich and famous down there. So it's only safe to assume she eventually came into the company of more famous people like Sean Combs and other people in the area. But we've got one that's even closer to Sean Combs this time. Something that just recently happened. Something on October...
Hold on. I don't want to watch that. I don't think I've seen that one.
Oye, ma'am.
What happened here?
Sup, sobers. Welcome back to another sobering story with me, DJ Petrovsky. So I used to go to these smart recovery group meetings. I still check in periodically, but I don't need them as much as I used to when I was first getting sober. But they're an amazing group. It's kind of like an alternative to Alcoholics Anonymous. The thing I like most about the group is its self-management and recovery training is what SMART stands for. And I'm a huge advocate.
All right, let's fast forward here.
I still, like I said, I go check in periodically. Same ways that I do. Todd always had such wisdom. recovery, I totally get what he means. And the same is true for our story today. The young lady in our story, her name's Macy Marie Lathers, beautiful social media influencer and model, had everything going for her. She was truly on the rise. She was on the up. From everything I saw, this girl was on the up. She just moved to a new city. She was starting to take off with her modeling and her influencer career. By all accounts, she was on the rise. This girl was going to be somebody, and she was doing nothing but working towards this goal for the last, 5, 6+ years. For her to finally get to this point, it must have been so exciting. She must have been feeling completely on top of the world. She must have been feeling like she had nothing to worry about. She's winning right now. Life is great. I'm finally getting where I want to go. But just like Todd always says, sometimes rock bottom is just on the other side of that hill. So when things are going great, you've got to be extra vigilant. And unfortunately for Macy, she wasn't.
Oh my God. Let me show you what I got. This beat is so hot. Oh my God.
If you haven't joined me before, we talk about substance abuse and the crimes that it leaves behind. And if you missed last week, we talked about Wade Wilson last week. And very similar phenomenon with Wade Wilson, where he's now accused of these heinous crimes. He's all over the news, all over the media, and people see his face all over the place. And of course, Wade Wilson's a good-looking dude, even with the crazy tattoos all over his face. And so there's people, females mostly, but there's tons of people that are just flocking to him, obsessed with him, and have no regard for the fact that he is a, double unaliver, but they are just in love with the outer beauty, the outer shell of this person. In today's story, the same I'd say is true for Macy Marie Lathers. She's a super gorgeous, I would say supermodel status influencer, and she has an amazing following online. It's crazy how that kind of fame instantly hits, even though it's not necessarily fame. You're accused of a heinous crime. You're being plastered all over the news media because of something awful that you did, and yet people still come and want to follow and want to, show love for this person. So it's such a weird phenomenon, but I guess I can understand it. Like, people are so far removed from the situation that they can't truly comprehend that this person is capable of this in reality. Like, to them, it's just like, it's almost like a movie, it's something they saw on the TV. So I don't know, I'm just always bewildered by that effect. And I'm not going to lie and say that I don't think that Macy's absolutely drop dead gorgeous, but I also know that I'm not going to start writing her in prison, you know what I mean? I'm not going to try and start a relationship with this girl in prison because I saw her on the news and I think she's hot and blah, blah, blah. It just seems so strange to me that that's a thing, but it's a thing. And so, kind of just moving forward with the case, let's jump right into what actually happened with this story. All right, so it's August 10th, 2024, just about a month and a half ago from me recording this, and it's a pretty normal, beautiful blue sky day in Miami, Florida, always is down there. And some people are going into work because it's a Saturday, but for the most part, not many people are cruising out at this time in the morning. It's about 6:45 a.m. It's really a pretty quiet morning in Miami, Florida. We've got a few people actually driving into work. We've got Abraham Ismail, we've got his fiance, Juanita Hernandez, and then they've got their friend in the back seat. His name's Jesus Rubio. And they're all friends. They all work together. They're just carpooling, trying to save the planet, And so they're cruising into work in a little gray Suzuki. And as they're cruising down Northeast 8th Street, and out of nowhere, a white Mercedes sedan comes blowing through the red light at North Miami Avenue. Abraham has the green, he has the right-of-way, so they're cruising through this intersection, but that white Mercedes sedan smashes into the side of a black Range Rover, which then smashes into the side of Jesus, Juanita, and Abraham's little Suzuki car, completely smashing both cars really, but completely destroying this little Suzuki car. And I mean, the Mercedes sedan, those are bigger sedans. It's a really long, pretty heavy sedan. For a car anyways, it's pretty heavy. So between the two hits, this poor little Suzuki car just got crumpled. Unfortunately, Jesus in the back seat was killed on impact. He was smushed in the back of the car, and he actually had to be pulled using jaws of life out of the car just to get his body out of there. The other two, Juanita and Abraham, were both in pretty rough shape. Juanita was rushed to the hospital with Abraham Abraham as quickly as they possibly could get him out of that crunched car. The person in the black Range Rover had some minor injuries, but they were not nearly as hurt as Abraham and Juanita were. So they rushed everybody to the hospital, and while they're trying to figure out what caused all of this, they're trying to figure out what happened to the driver in the white Mercedes. Like, where did they go? They just disappeared. There's nobody in the car. Number one, they want to make sure that this person in the white Mercedes is okay, because they just got into a serious accident. Whether or not it was their fault or not, it doesn't matter. They want to make sure they're okay. And so they're looking for this driver. Now, unbeknownst to everybody, what actually happened to this driver is that this young lady got out of the car, and then we see this video here where she's actually walking down, it looks like she's walking down North Miami Avenue, and then she comes across this group of people that looks like they're exercising or running or something, and then she tries to kind of like blend in and move back in with them and heads back towards where the crash is. And I'm not sure exactly because we don't have any video footage from here, but all witness accounts say that they witnessed her come back, kind of observe the accident, and then try and get away from the accident. And if it weren't for innocent bystanders that saw everything kind of going on, they actually grabbed her and like held her at the scene until police were able to arrive. Now, when they did grab her, she was about a block away from the crash, so it's clear that she was trying to leave the scene. And after seeing the video of her going back to the scene, we know that she probably went back, realized how bad everything was, and then was like, I gotta get out of here. So we see her, she's about a block away. And then I've got this video here to just give you kind of an idea of the state of mind that she was in when she was apprehended by police and right after all of this happened. And let me just give you a quick reminder that this is still at 6:45 in the morning.
Ma'am. She's what? Hey, chill out, chill out.
Relax.
Chill out.
Relax.
¿Ustedes vieron lo que pasó?
Bitch can go through a tank. Smoke that's dope.
Miami 8 on the southeast, one corner. Black shirt, blue jeans.
Relax, stay on your left because you're going up.
Stay like that. Look that way.
Ma'am, can you stay over there looking that way?
I need to kiss over, see? Nice hat, dude. He's got like 12 hats on.
She's sideways, brother. Oye, ma'am.
Relax, relax.
Sounds alright.
I think you were involved in a crash.
She probably won't be able to walk.
Does anything hurt you? Who heard the thing?
We have real time on it.
I'm dressed to impress here.
Yeah, more.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
My mole.
Fugazi outfit. Dressed like the mob.
Ma'am, what car are you driving?
Mercedes. Is it? My name
That's
is
a car?
Mercedes. Mercedes.
Calm down.
I'm from the future.
Awesome, amazing.
Oh, Crystal Ball.
This chick was high on her fucking gourd.
What do you want?
Oh,
4514.
Nice Mario, looking fucking dope now.
I mean, though, if you know that we have this thing, we're gonna advise fire rescue. She just told us now she's on Odyssey. So, joke. She's gonna be one of the vehicles that got into a collision. She's claiming she's on Odyssey.
Is this unrelated?
Yeah, no, it's related. They had her detained. She's with the white Mercedes. They got into an accident.
Make this a little bigger.
Yeah. She's trying to leave the scene.
Okay. All right, we'll set her up. We'll get on a sensor.
Just try to make sure she's not like a trauma alert. Perfect. Okay. Ma'am.
Relax. Ma'am, I told you to relax. Get up.
Get her up. She's freaking out. Sit down. Apparently what he did. We're just going to do a quick assessment in the back. And go from there. She provided what you guys
She's on Tusi, so she's saying right now. She's like, oh, I'm from the future. Okay, hold on, man.
We'll get her there. She's on Tusi.
And then me just, porque supposedamente they crashed and she tried to leave the scene. So.
Alright, I'm just going to need an officer to come with us.
Yeah, gotcha. No problem.
They're coming.
Yeah.
I'll get her legs.
Okay. So she's probably wasted, or she's probably high on something, right? Yep. You would be correct. And I don't know if she says it very explicitly in the video, but they ask her what she was on, and she says 2C. And I was like, huh? What? 2C? And the video that got me into this case was titled something about pink cocaine. And I pride myself on having done many different types of substances in my past. I have tried almost everything that there is to try outside of certain things you have to like travel to South America to do and things like that. But besides that, I've tried a lot of stuff. So when I heard pink cocaine, I was like, huh? So I had to figure this. I had to research. I had to see what was going on here. Number one, I'll just say,
of this shit.
substance marketers, they're the worst. They don't. I mean, I guess it's a good way to market because cocaine's a hell of a drug.
GPW is paying good, by the way.
We got biggest false advertisement there is, because after doing some research into what is this substance, it's not even cocaine.
Much money we making.
Usually there can be cocaine in there, but it's typically MDMA and ketamine mixed together, and then they dye it pink just to make it look pretty and fun. And then sometimes they even spray it with something that smells like strawberries so that it smells good too. Like, tell me you're not marketing to girls. Come on. There's one thing that me and my buddies have always said throughout our time using substances and partying, and if you choose to mix ketamine and driving a car, we call that vehicular manslaughter, 100%, because there's no reason or way that you can even
as much as I like the green screen effect, I think I might keep with this TV camera thing. I think
it's crazy for me to
more
think
on
about
brand.
This, but regardless, our young lady here, she says that she's high on this pink cocaine
Depends
stuff.
what game I'm playing.
It's called 2C, and I know what you're thinking, like 2 and then the letter C. Yes, that is it, because it comes from a subset of substances known as the 2C substances, and these substances are all very similar in their chemical makeup to like real substances like MDMA, and I don't know, there's a bunch of different ones, but they're all very similar in their chemical compounds, so they actually give very similar effects. But because they're slightly different, they're not technically illegal. So they're synthetic designer substances that are now considered legal. It sounds like that's similar to what this pink cocaine stuff is, but pink cocaine really is just a mixture of MDMA, which is a real Schedule 1 narcotic, and ketamine, which is lately become more popular with, treatment for depression, anxiety, and stuff like that. But when it's used recreationally, then that's a whole different ballgame. But those two mixed together, that's what makes pink cocaine. Now, I hadn't heard of pink cocaine one time in my entire life. I've now heard of it twice in the same week, which I think is crazy. The other experience with pink cocaine that I've heard of is with Diddy. Apparently, Diddy had his assistants keeping a healthy stock of his substance of choice, which happened to be, you guessed it, pink cocaine. Based on all the things I've read and heard about Diddy, it sounds like something that he would do. Especially the whole strawberry pink thing. Like, that sounds like Diddy. And all right, guys,
I thought he was just referencing
quote me
vagina, but
now as being the first person to say this, but I think that maybe Macy, with her new social status, might have been at one of them crazy Diddy freak-off parties.
What?
I'm just saying, Diddy lived in Miami. They've already linked a ton of pink cocaine back to Diddy. He had crazy parties. She's a social media model. She's involved with really fancy, wealthy people in that area. Hey, the math is mathin', I'm just saying. So, quote DJ Petrovsky as being the first to say that maybe Macy was linked to the Diddy parties. Once the case starts unfolding, then we'll find out. I'm just saying.
Wow,
drop a
bold
comment.
take.
Let me know what you guys think about my theory here, because I think I might be onto something. I really think I'm onto something here, guys. And if you know something about it or you have more information about that,
obvious.
Drop a comment. Let me know. Let's talk about it. So knowing what we know now about this pink cocaine 2C stuff, we can likely assume that if it is heavily like ketamine based, mixed with MDMA, which can also cause hallucinations if you take it in a high enough dose, then we can safely assume that poor Macy was out of her mind, high on some substances. Probably like at least playing with the idea of a K-hole, but if not fully immersed in one. And on top of everything else, somehow she found a way to get behind the wheel of a car. And that to me is the scariest part because, and I wanted to just stop real quick and say this, because if you guys are friends with people who at the end of the night choose to leave completely obliterated either on substances or alcohol, you're not a good friend. And you're not a good person for letting them go out and possibly harm themselves or harm others, because it could end super tragically. It doesn't take much to let somebody sleep on your couch for a few hours and have them wake up, or just call them an Uber ride and tell them to pay you back tomorrow or whatever. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And I'm not even, I'm a big hypocrite because I drove everywhere all the time when I was not supposed to be driving, in a terrible state of mind. However, that's what led me to where I'm at today, where I'm now choosing to be sober because, well, I was fucking up. But if you're doing that and you're letting somebody leave and they're in that crazy of a state of mind, that's not a good friend. Now, I can't say one way or the other that there was for sure people that let her go and do this wherever she was, but clearly it's 6:45 a.m. and she is not doing anything productive at this time of day, taking these substances. So likely she's coming home from a really late night that she had out with friends or other people, and likely she's still high on whatever she was on the night before, but they did also find some of the same stuff in her car. So it's also possible that she was just up early and just using these substances early in the morning as well. We'll never truly know what was going through her mind or what truly happened until some more of the discovery and the details come out. That's my kind of conjecture about everything, just based on the timeline of everything. That's what it seems like happened to me. Now, like all accidents, they can pull data from the cars to see what happened just before the accident occurred, and they can see from the white Mercedes data that not only was Macy driving 47 miles per hour in this, I believe it was like a 35 mile an hour zone, but then she pressed pedal to the metal status, the gas pedal down to the floor, accelerating 100%, and the car reached a speed of 78 miles an hour before smashing into the other car. So, what the fuck? Maybe she thought she was hitting the brake and she hit the gas. I just realized that. Man, she must have been really high. Whoa. But she smashed into that little Suzuki and that Range Rover at 80 miles per hour. And be mindful, they were traveling this direction. She was traveling this direction.
That shit 80 miles
an
hour.
I mean, they're colliding. They're also moving at about, 35 miles an hour. Bam, 80 and 40. I don't know what the math is there. Mathematicians, help me out in the comments. Not only was she high on pink cocaine when this all happened, but she was also driving without a license. Apparently her license had been suspended since January of 2024. And I searched as hard as I possibly could to try and figure out why her license was suspended, but I couldn't quite figure it out. So I figured let's just go through a few reasons that could lead to your license being suspended, and then we'll get an idea of probably what kind of driver she was and why she wasn't supposed to be on the road, let alone on the road under the influence. Now, right here it says several factors or several crimes can result in a driver losing their license. Felonies involving a vehicle, so if you transport somebody, or like a bank robbery, or you transport a felon in your car, then you could lose your license that way. Reckless driving, just excessive speeding or being reckless in general and being dangerous, that can lead to it, which she was definitely doing. Vehicular homicide, which she hasn't obviously done yet, but she did this time. DUI, which is the first thing I thought of, was did she get a DUI before? What's going on here? Why'd she lose her license? Failure to appear. If you don't go to your traffic court violations, they will, or your court date for it, then they will take your license. Failing to pay child support. I did not know they could take your license for that. Drag racing, speed contests. But these are all things that could lead to you losing your license. What do I think she did? I think it could have been either a combination of her having multiple traffic violations that she didn't attend to, so they took her license, Or I think that she had some sort of like really reckless driving incident where she got her license taken. Possibly a DUI, but a DUI would have shown up in my record search that I was making, and I didn't see any records for any former arrests. So I really don't know, but I tried to find it for you guys. I tried really hard.
Oh.
Now, in terms of the charges that she was charged with for this crime, I tried to figure out maybe I could see like what the charges were in this case. Might give me a clue as to what her previous charges were for the suspension. Still couldn't find anything. Although none of the driving while impaired stuff says first offense, and usually they do if it's your first offense. So it could possibly be a previous driving under the influence situation, but I'm not really sure at this point. But some of the charges that she was hit with is, let's see, DWOL, DWLS, so driving while operating, or driving while over the legal limit, I guess. I'm not really sure what the DWOL is. DWLS is driving while license is suspended. And obviously there's 3 counts of that because it resulted in injury or death. She injured multiple people and unalived 2 people. The next thing we see here is leaving the scene of a crash resulting in death. Another felony charge. We've got 2 counts of vehicular homicide, reckless driving, DUI manslaughter. Another DUI manslaughter, failed to aid since she left the scene. She failed to aid anybody there. It would look good if you tried to help the people that you just hit. DUI, injury to another person, bodily injury, driving without a license causing serious injury, leaving the scene of a crash causing death, leaving the scene of a crash causing serious bodily injury, yet again driving without a license causing serious bodily injury, and let's see, leaving the scene of a crash, serious bodily injury, and
those other ones.
I think we got a couple more here. So, I mean, they are throwing the book at her for this one, that's for sure. She has been slapped with tons of charges, and driving without a license thing certainly doesn't help the equation. Also, how'd you get this nice Mercedes if you didn't have a license? Like, was this even her car? No, there's no any sort of information on whether or not this was actually her car or not. Sounds like it was, but not sure how she got it. So, I mean, if you find yourself in a similar situation, I pray that you don't. But at least render aid to the people that you just hit, because that'll at least look better for you than if you just take off and try and pretend like nothing happened and get away with it. Definitely a better option. Now, unfortunately, we already lost Jesus in the back seat, but the other 3 people that were taken to the hospital, only 2 of them ended up surviving, and that would be Juanita, Abraham's fiance, and then the unnamed mystery person from the Black Range Rover. They only had minor injuries. They ended up surviving. But Abraham unfortunately died from his injuries while in the hospital. So we've got 2 unalivings from 1 poor decision. And we've got a girl who is completely out of her mind, and she's claiming that she's from the future and that her name is Mercedes, and she's also claiming that she's got a crystal ball and like all this wild
maybe
stuff,
she was from the
she's obviously messed up. Even more than that,
future,
she
like
knows
a couple
she
seconds
messed
ahead
up
of everybody.
Because even though you're that messed up in your mind, she clearly walked back
her mind,
to the
she's
crime
from the
scene. She walked away from it.
Just a
She
couple
was making the
seconds ahead of
decision to
everybody.
get out of there. So she had
Still
some
technically the
concept of
future.
what was going on. She couldn't have been completely out of her mind. People were trying to, hold her down at the scene and keep her from getting away. So maybe that's how her shirt came off. But somehow it comes off in between the video that we see and then the video we see again with her on the ground. Either that or she just took it off and was trying to act more crazy than she actually was. We'll never really know what was going through her mind. But with 2 people, unfortunately, not making it through this tragic accident, obviously she's high on something. They decide they're going to transport her as well down to a hospital and figure out if she has any injuries. And then they're also going to do a toxicology report on her to figure out what is this girl on. On top of that, they also wanted to bring an officer with, because obviously she's going to be facing some charges and some jail time and some music, so to speak. Now, outside of her mental state, I think we can assume that Macy was just fine, because she was walking away from the accident just fine. She seems like she was uninjured, so that's a good thing for her. I'm glad that she was uninjured. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to kind of go back and talk about how this young lady was truly a star on the rise. Like, she had so much promise. She was moving up. Like, everything in her trajectory was up until today. Macy Marie Lathers was born on June 19th, 1996. So that would make her a Gemini. And unfortunately for her, That's one of the most common unalivers astrological signs. So, I mean, maybe that was a little foreboding, but I don't know. I don't know a lot about Gemini. Sorry if you're a Gemini. Lathers was from Fort Plain, New York, which is fairly close to Albany. I'm not familiar with New York. I've never been there. But where she was from seems like a smaller town, not like a big city like, big New York City. So pretty quaint little area. Seems like she was really close with her family. Her dad's name is Shane, and her mom's name is Marla. And then she also has a younger brother. I think he's about 15 years younger. And his name is Madden, which I think is really cool. Seemed like a really close family. Looks like they live by the water.
Madden.
And her dad is, from
Which
all the
year,
pictures
Madden?
I saw, which was a lot.
26?
He's the ultimate fisherman.
Madden
And
2004
it seems like he
was
passed
the
that
best.
trade down to
No,
Madden
wait, never
as
mind,
well, because
2005.
Madden is just as crazy catching all these fish. Like,
That's when the
between
hit
the
stick
two of them, I probably saw like
first came into
100
play.
fish. Just amazingly massive, huge, beautiful fish that they pulled out of the water. And so I know it's a sport. I know some fishermen friends. It's such a cool skill to be able to do because I don't have that skill. Macy just seems like she has a really wholesome American family. She went to a pretty wholesome high school. She played soccer through junior high and through high school. Not only does Macy's family seem, fairly normal, fairly upper middle class, but they also seem like they love meeting famous people. They love going to see shows, a lot of mixed martial arts events. They love going to music shows, concerts, things like that. It just seems like they're always out meeting famous people. They've got tons of pictures with Mike Tyson.
We just love meeting
Shaq.
famous people.
I don't even know, tons of other dudes I don't even recognize, but just famous people, and they're getting signatures. So I can understand why Macy started to take the trajectory that she did. I think that she was so starstruck when she was younger by all this fame that she was so close to all the time that it gave her this insatiable craving to want that same fame. She wanted that same exact lifestyle, really. But Macy ended up graduating from Fort Plain High School.
She got it.
Then she moved on from there. It looks like she played soccer for Herkimer Community College, which is like a University of New York State School affiliate. And it looks like she just went there for a couple of years, get some college experience, get some classes under her belt, maybe until she figured out what she wanted to do. And then she was also still playing soccer for them as well, which is awesome. I couldn't do that. I couldn't play sports and go to school, especially college. I just couldn't manage my time that well then. When would you party? Then after a couple of years at Herkimer College, she transfers to the University of Albany, and she is going to be a business administration's major, which I think is a great move. It's if you're trying to get into business, if you're trying to do anything where you want to be an entrepreneur, or if you want to do anything that makes good big money, then it makes sense to have business classes and business acumen under your belt. I don't know, that's all speculation. But regardless, it sounds like she had chosen a major, and she was not only doing well in school, she was getting great grades. She was getting A's and B's. She had about a 3.6 GPA, and she was also on the dean's list. So she's a very well recognized student at the school, and sounds like she's keeping up with her grades. She's very involved. I don't think she was playing sports for the University of Albany, though. It looks like she was just studying, and then she ends up graduating in 2021, which is where we see this awesome graduation picture. She looks super excited. Things are just going great for her. She's got a degree under her belt now. She is absolutely stunningly gorgeous, and she has all these bright future plans. One of the things I found that I really liked on her Facebook page was that she talked a lot about manifestation and kind of visualizing and dreaming your real life into reality. And I love seeing that. I'm big on manifestation, especially with my sober journey. That's one of the things I've been trying to get better at now that I'm not so focused on using substances all the time. I'm trying to get better about manifesting my reality and manifesting the things I want in life, and manifesting a better future for myself and my family. And so seeing all that, I was like, yeah, hell yes, I love that. You go, girl. And not only that, but I started to see a trend where things were starting to piece together for her, and things were starting to slowly build on top of each other. And she was starting to see results with what she was trying to do. And it wasn't really until she moved down to Miami from New York that she really started to see anything take off. And I think she made a smart move there. She wants to get this fame. She wants a lavish lifestyle, and she's obviously very pretty. So I think she was wanting to do something with her modeling, and that is apparent because she starts this Instagram page She labels herself as an entrepreneur around this time on her Facebook page, and she starts posting tons and tons of glamorous shots of her. And then not only that, but now she's moved down to Miami, so that's going to open up tons of opportunities for her. Some of those opportunities she lands is not only some modeling gigs. I read on her Facebook that she was an extra in a movie, and so there's a picture of her being an extra in a movie down there, or maybe it's a music video, I can't remember. But she's an extra anyways, which isn't huge, but that's how you start. You know, you start getting involved as an extra, and then you start getting involved as a, like, not main cast member, but like a side cast member. And then, you know, it just builds on it. So you have to get your foot in the door somewhere, and it sounds like she was doing that. And then on top of that, she was also working as a ring girl for some sort of boxing or MMA fighting ring.
Those
and
are
I thought
very
that was
important
really
jobs.
cool because honestly, she is pretty. She could do
Central work.
the whole boxing fighting ring girl thing where she's holding up the signs and walking around, and she's one of the ring girls where she walks in with the fighters as well. So I don't know, it just seems cool, especially because in her past she would go see MMA fights all the time with her family. So it just seemed kind of fitting. It seemed like she's putting her passions all together, and she's coming up with this new lifestyle and using it to make good money and build a life for herself. So I thought it was awesome. I thought she was really, truly on the up. And the more that we go through her photos, we'll just look at a few of them here. Like, you can see she's in some with their fancy cars. She's got somewhere she's getting her whole body painted, which is really cool. People hire models to do all sorts of things. So she's probably just landing all these cool gigs, and just modeling for different things, and really starting to utilize her looks as her business. And then not only that, but she amassed a huge following on her Instagram. At the time of the crash, she had about 11,000 followers, and now I think she's at almost 15,000. So, I mean, she was already fairly popular, but she wasn't even really in the game that long. If you ask me, she'd only moved to Miami in 2022, and the crash happened in 2024. So maybe 2 solid years of grinding in this new world of hers, and I think she was honestly doing really well. One of the reasons she said she wanted to move down to Miami was because she wanted to get her master's degree, and so I'm not sure if she was actually working on that or not. I don't think she was, because I think when she got down there and started to realize how successful her modeling and her social media influencing career was going, I think she realized, I want to do this instead. And with so much promise and so much success that she was seeing up until this point, to me it's just so tragic that not only did she take 2 lives, but she kind of took her own as well, because I mean, she's not going to be around for another 20 to 30 years, and all that hard work that she put into social media modeling and influencing and all that may not even be a thing when she gets out of prison. So it's just another sad, tragic story that exemplifies exactly how dangerous substances can be, how dangerous addiction can be. And I don't have any evidence to say that she was necessarily addicted, but I know with that fame, with that kind of just with that lifestyle that
fame is the drug.
That is a pretty common thing, to have substance use mixed in and intermingled and partying, and it's the fun party lavish lifestyle that she was living, and you know, substances always go hand in hand with that. So whether Macy had an addiction or not, I'll never really know. I'm sure she's sober now, having been in jail for a little while, but it is safe to say that she made some pretty poor decisions that night and then that morning to take as much as she did of that pink cocaine stuff, because that stuff, maybe she didn't even know what was in it. When they're labeling it pink cocaine, you're going to assume it's going to make you feel uppery. But ketamine and MDMA, I mean, they'll give you a little bit of an up, but honestly, they're a pretty, like, sedating experience. So I'm not really understanding how they can call it that. Maybe she didn't even know what she was taking. You know, 90% of the time, people don't know what's in the substances they're taking anymore. Especially with a substance like pink cocaine, you're never going to know what's actually in there. It's probably a little bit of baby laxative, a little bit of dust from the dealer's house, like, oh, there's going to be all kind baby powder. Who knows, man? You're going to get all kinds of stuff in there, on top of random substances that were intermingled on the table or that they just randomly choose to throw in there, let alone maybe even fentanyl. And nobody wants that in anything. Now, Macy was held initially, obviously because of the seriousness of the crime. Originally, she was released on a $10,000 bond, and she was placed on house arrest, where she was forbidden from driving, and then she couldn't leave her house and had to wear a little monitor bracelet. However, when she came back to court for her next hearing, which I think was on September 3rd, they hit her with another 4 charges on top of the 10 or more charges they already hit her with originally. And that's because of the 2 unalivings that happened, and so they hit her with 2 vehicular homicide charges. So because of that, the judge deemed that she was actually a danger to society, and she didn't think that it was fair for her to be out on house arrest. And not only that, but the families were pretty openly against her being out of jail with the seriousness of the crime. So the judge decided that she would reset the bond at $140,000, and she's actually not going to be released this time. It's unfortunate for her because I don't think she realized that was going to happen. I think she thought she was going to be out on bond until her actual final trial date. But unfortunately, she'll be held now in jail until her ultimate trial date and through all the ultimate proceedings. So unless she can post her $140,000 bond, which I think you have to come up with 10% of. So it'd be like 14 grand or 1,400. Man, I suck at math. But anyways, she'll likely be in jail for a while until her trial date, and she's pretty broken up about it. You can understand why. You're not a bad person, but you made some serious mistakes, and so I can imagine her beating herself up real bad. On top of the fact that she unalived 2 people, I don't know how she's going to live with that, because I know I would have a hard time living with that if it was me. But it just goes to show the seriousness of the substances that you guys take. Like, there's all kinds of substances popping up all the time, and you can't take them too lightly, and you especially don't want to take them and get behind the wheel of a car. Sure, maybe you don't think that you're going to hurt yourself, but put other people's lives in your hands as well, because when you take that risk, you're taking that risk with other people's lives as well, not just your own. They didn't choose for you to get out of your mind high. They didn't choose that. You did. So if you want to drive yourself off a cliff or whatever, that's totally fine. I don't recommend it. But if you want to do that to yourself, then that's totally acceptable. But if you're going to go start putting other people's lives at risk, that's just not fair. Also, just to be clear, I don't recommend that you drive yourself off a cliff. I just think that you shouldn't get in the car at all. That's what I think. You can call an Uber or just sleep on the curb or just like sleep at your homie's place. Like, I've done that a lot. Hopefully this story just brings a little bit of awareness to the new substances that are around. I mean, Diddy's all over this substance. I had no idea pink cocaine was a thing.
Actually enjoy the city.
Diddy keeps a healthy supply of it at his house with all the baby oil he's
big
got.
gray block's all
I mean,
shiny
shoot.
still.
Well, am I living under a rock? What's going on here? This stuff is out there, you guys. Just be careful if you are substance users, especially with how little we actually know about what is in the substances we're taking, because of how much everything is cut and how shady everybody is and how the dealer industry is entirely money-based. So they're going to try and make more money, and to make more money, they got to give you less product. But if you're weighing it, then how are you going to give them less product? Well, you mix new stuff in there that you don't want in there. So you just need to be mindful of what's in your stuff, you guys. But you should practice sobriety like I do, so that makes it easy. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. But I'm not trying to push anything on you guys. But if you do need help, or if you are struggling, or if you know somebody's struggling, then send them my way, because I'm always down to help. If you have questions, if you want to know more about the smart recovery I was talking about from the beginning, please reach out, because I'm always happy to talk about recovery. It completely changed my life 180 degrees in a positive direction. And I don't have to worry about taking pink cocaine and unaliving 2 people anymore, because I just don't do things like that. However, I will guarantee you this: had I been approached by somebody with pink cocaine in the club and asked if I wanted some back in the day, then I would have said definitely yes. So I would have to know what is this, and either that or I'd be like, I don't know, why is it pink? It's got to have food coloring, and that's not organic. So I mean, I'm sorry guys, but another beautiful supermodel eligible bachelorette is off the streets now because of some poor choices that she made and because of her inability to control her substance use. And so I mean, it's a true bummer, but at the same time, hopefully she's getting the help she needs. Hopefully she's understanding the gravity of things. And hopefully there can be some peace and some closure for Abraham and Jesus' families, and for Juanita as well, because she just lost her fiance. And there is a GoFundMe. I'm not sure if it's still active, but there is a GoFundMe for Juanita. I'll try and throw it in the comments or in the description down below. So if you guys want to donate to Juanita, they have a 16-year-old son who is left without a dad, and Juanita being so badly injured, she's unable to work right now. So their income is
supposed to be some type of record.
And so they're just hoping for the kindness of strangers to keep them afloat and keep them going, especially having just lost 2 special people in their life. That's all I got for you guys today. Watch out for pink cocaine. Diddy's behind bars. You don't got to worry about watching out for Diddy no more. But yeah, don't make poor choices, and don't let one tragic decision
Your
be
shit
your
sucks.
downfall
Let me play.
like it was for Macy. But thanks for sticking around
Gotta
this
play
long, you
guitar now.
guys. If you want to check out more of my sobering stories, if you want to check out the Wade Wilson episode, I've got the Wade Wilson episode. I'll put that right here on a little card. It's like right here.
Good form,
somewhere
Mario.
in this general area. And then if you want to
No,
check
said
out any
go
of
play
my other
outside.
sobering stories, I've got an entire playlist
No,
of
she
all of them.
didn't.
But I do one every week, every Friday. And so check back in with me next Friday.
Just heckling
And
the guy.
this whole next week, put one of my podcasts on
Snap my
each day,
finger to
and
it.
then you'll get through all of them in a week. It'll be great. So
Why am I
yes.
so short?
Anyways, there'll be a couple of videos at the end for you as well. But besides that, my name's DJ Petrovsky. Later, sobers.
It's not that good, guys.
What did the newly released Epstein files reveal about the
Epstein. Read all about it.
October 16th of this year. That's just 2 weeks ago, you guys. And something that some of you may have heard about, some of you may not have heard about, but we're talking about the story of Liam Payne, One Direction superstar who was found unalived after falling 3 stories, nearly 40 feet to his end. The crazy thing about this story, and the thing that's got everybody on the internet thinking of all these crazy conspiracy theories, is the fact that Liam Payne had multiple substances in his system, but he had large amounts of pink cocaine in his system and in the hotel room
There it is
that
again.
he had fallen off the balcony of. This story is absolutely nuts, and it just gives more credence to my belief that Sean Combs has something more to do with this whole pink cocaine explosion. It's recently
Did he
started
always fucking people
exploding
up?
in cities like Miami, New York City, Los Angeles. And these are all places where Sean Combs is known to live. And if he has such a demand for it in his personal entourage, then what makes you think that he's not running some sort of legitimate, I'm
Could've
sorry,
got to hit
some
30
sort of
jumps. He
illegitimate
said, "Oh, I'll never hit
scheme
30 jumps."
behind closed doors?
Well, I will.
Maybe connected to Venezuelan cartels. Well, let's dive in because
Do
this
it. Let's
one
go.
is a crazy one, you guys.
Get it.
Oh my God.
Come on. Come on. Let me jump. Damn it. Come on. Let Mario
So
in on
I'm
this
not
shit.
really into boy bands as much as I used to be when I was like 10 or 12. I used to love the
Back up and
Backstreet
give it another
Boys.
try.
Well, I
Okay,
still
fine.
do. And NSYNC, 98 Degrees, you know, all the classic boy bands that came out when we were younger. I loved them. It was great. The music was phenomenal. But there's one boy band that skyrocketed above all others, and that would be One Direction. And I never really listened to One Direction. I've probably heard some of their songs just because they're so popular. And I, of course, know of them and about them and the fact that they birthed so many amazing solo artists. But I did not know who Liam Payne was. And when I was doing my research, seeing this story about him and what had happened to him and his whole life story, honestly, it's so tragic and so interesting. And it is a perfect example
Killing
of
it, killing
just
it.
how dangerous
43,
and
bitch.
just how controlling
that 30
and
jump guy.
serious substance
Smashed the
abuse
record.
is and addiction is. It just goes to show how difficult it is
Killed
for
it.
some people to get out of it. Even people who you think have everything.
So what's my
Someone
best?
who's
What's
rich,
my
someone
record?
who's famous, someone who has no
How good am I
reason
compared to the
to
world?
complain or be upset or be depressed. Somebody even like this
Where am I
can
at?
lose themselves to addiction, and we see it far too often, especially with these childhood stars,
Ooh,
people who get
not even
famous
close.
when they're younger. They miss that
Oh, I'm
opportunity
only
to kind of grow up and learn who they are, and learn about
shit,
themselves. And the story of Liam Payne
3,449,100.
is
There's a lot of players in
exactly
this game.
that, and unfortunately has
A
a
lot of people
tragic
hit
ending as
43.
well. On October 16th, 2024,
Oh, that's gotta
just
be
2 weeks
rigged.
ago, like I mentioned, Liam
These
Payne
guys
was
got
staying at the Casa Sor Palermo Hotel down in Buenos Aires,
Kyle,
Argentina, and
have
he was
fun.
just
You
down
had
there on holiday with his current girlfriend. At this
99,999
time,
jumps.
Liam's dating a beautiful
No way they
supermodel
did
named
all
Kate
that.
Cassidy, but at this point, they wanted to take a quick vacation,
They're
take a
lying.
little holiday down to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and they wanted to catch a
They're
show.
lying.
Niall Horan, one of the former One
They rigged
Direction
the
guys,
game.
was going to be playing a
No
show
way they
down in
sat there and did that
Argentina
long.
at one of the same venues that Liam was actually
shouldn't
supposed
question
to have played on his
How
tour
many
that
pe-
he
how
had
much
announced.
people-
And
how much
so
people waste
we're
their
not
time
really
doing
sure
shit like
exactly
that.
why he wanted to go to this show, but he did. He wanted to make it to this show, and he says that he has some words to exchange with his boy Niall. It's not bad stuff, it's no negative vibes, but he has some things he wants to talk to him about. So he heads down to Argentina, and what starts as a 5-day vacation turns into a 2-week long vacation for these two. they're just having so much fun. They're just enjoying their time down there. They're doing things like playing polo, just checking out the sights, enjoying the city, enjoying the beautiful weather. And after about 2 weeks, they have to get back to take care of some of their responsibilities, but
I'll take that, thank
Liam
you.
doesn't really want to head back yet. So Kate decides she's going to head back on her own. She's going to take care of the dog and do some of the things they need to get done. We're not 100% sure exactly why she decided to leave. If there was maybe a fight involved, if there was some reason behind her actually taking off and leaving him behind, or if she just legitimately wanted to get back and he legitimately just wanted to stay. All of those are very likely options, but we're not 100% sure at this time. Now, Liam stays down in Argentina, and as he does this, he begins to go on a bender, essentially. He begins by getting completely obliterated drunk and gets kicked out of the hotel that him and Kate were actually staying at. And because of him getting kicked out of that hotel, he has to find somewhere else to go. So he finds the Casa Sur Palermo Hotel, and he goes over there, checks into that hotel, and decides he's going to stay there instead. Now, this is when he starts to really pick things up, and his behavior starts to get really erratic and really out of control. So he's at this hotel, and there's a young lady. She's just referred to as Rebecca. We're not really sure exactly who this young lady is, but she recounts seeing Liam in the hotel lobby just a few hours before he was found unalived. And what she recounts is that he was acting really aggressive and kind of just over the top, trying to get everybody in the lobby and anybody that was in the vicinity to notice him and recognize him and kind of want to give him accolades and show him love.
It's actually really hard to do.
Just essentially recognize him.
Make it easy.
But he was doing it in this weird, awkward, forceful way. Like, hey, look at me. At some point, she recalls him literally just exclaiming in the middle of the lobby, "Yes, I am Liam." And there's a bunch of people in the lobby that do recognize him, but they're so pushed away and so turned off by how he's acting and how crazy he seems at the time that they don't really even want to approach him. But this girl, Rebecca, sees him kind of talking to some fans. He's taking pictures with people. He's signing autographs. But he's just kind of making a scene and kind of just drawing attention to himself in a really strange, awkward, uncomfortable way. And it's making it seem like he's obviously on something. He's out of his mind right now, and they're not really sure what, though. And at one point, he stumbles as if he's going to go back into the elevator, but he falls to the ground, and it actually takes the staff from the hotel to actually pick him up and walk him into the elevator, and then they get him back up to his room. He gets back up to his room, he stays up there for a little while, but he ends up coming back down to the lobby. And this Rebecca girl sees him come back down to the lobby, and at this point, he's got a laptop with him. He goes, he sits down over somewhere in the lobby, and he looks to be checking his email or doing something on his computer. Out of nowhere, this girl Rebecca says that he just freaks out, jumps up out of his seat, says, "Fuck this shit," and then he throws his computer on the ground and just smashes it into pieces. People are freaking out because they don't know what's going on. The only thing that this girl Rebecca can think to do is to just check on him. She's like, I want to make sure he's okay. Like, I don't know what he's dealing with or what he's going through, but I just want to make sure that he's okay. So she goes over, she asks if he's okay. He kind of just grunts and scoffs her off and just kind of ignores her. And then after that, all he says is, I was in a boy band when I was younger, and that's why I'm so fucked up. And then after that, he kind of just storms off and takes off back up to his room. Now, of course, the hotel staff saw this all happen as well because it happened in the lobby. And as he goes back up to his room, the hotel staff decides, like, this is out of control. We need to do something. We're going to call some help for this guy. We're going to call 911. So they dial 911 and they let them know, like, yeah, we've got this guest. He's going crazy. He's acting very violent. He's clearly drunk and likely high on some sort of substance. We're not really sure, but he is definitely on something. And he's just being over the top violent and crazy. And now we're getting reports from other guests in the hotel that are nearby saying that there's loud crashing sounds. It sounds like there's just loud thuds and just, it sounds like something crazy is going on, to the point where the guests thought that there was construction or something happening to the hotel. But no, it was just Liam up in his room going crazy, throwing everything he can, destroying the entire hotel room, just absolutely losing his
19
mind.
seconds is cheating.
Bueno, tenemos un huésped que está sobrepasado de droga y alcohol y bueno, está Cuando está consciente, está rompiendo toda la habitación y bueno, necesitamos que manden a alguien, por favor.
Bajo efectos de alcohol y estupefaciente, ¿no, señor?
Super
Sí,
exciting.
correcto.
Do something else
Y
with your lives.
necesitamos que nos envíen a alguien urgente porque,
So that
bueno,
exciting.
yo no sé si corre riesgo la vida del huésped. Está en una habitación que tiene balcón y bueno, estamos un poco con temor de que haga algo que le ponga en riesgo
¿Hace
su
cuánto que
vida.
está ahí o es un hotel de vivienda?
No, es hace 2 o 3 días que está acá.
Now, while on the phone with the 911 dispatcher, they tell him, like, we're really worried about this guy because he is really, really messed up and he has a hotel room with a balcony. And we're not sure if he's safe up there. Like, he may fall off that balcony. He may try to hurt himself. We're just not sure. We need you guys to hurry. But before ambulance or any of the authorities arrive, unfortunately, Liam dove off of his 3rd-story balcony, falling 40 feet to his untimely unaliving. And it said because of his injuries, he didn't have very many injuries to his hands or forearms or anything looking like he tried to brace his fall at all. So they think that he might have been very close to unconscious, if not, blacked out in some way. But regardless, they don't think that he was conscious when this happened because of how little he tried to break his own fall. Now, sure, open, closed, unaliving, self-unaliving case, no investigation needed. Wrong. No, there's very, very many questions surrounding this whole situation. Number one, why? Why would he do this? Number two, how on earth did he get to the point where he was ready to jump off of this balcony? The thing with Liam's passing that has everybody speculating and conspirizing and theorizing is the fact that a week after this happened, authorities raided the hotel. They got all of the camera footage. They got all this evidence, and they started collecting anything they could trying to investigate this case. Because the case has so many questions, it was ruled as a suspicious homicide, but they're not really sure what or why or where or how. So they're doing some more investigating. And the thing that was the most concerning was all the crazy amount of substances they found in the hotel room once they did their investigation after the fact. Now, a toxicology report would show copious amounts of pink cocaine, which usually consists of methamphetamine, MDMA, and ketamine. So pretty crazy mixture of substances. But on top of that, they also found clonazepam, and they also found crack cocaine and regular cocaine. So the guy was on a lot of substances. There's no way that's good for your body, number one. Even more than that, he had multiple open alcohol containers, and it was shown that he was extremely drunk at the time as well. As we'll get into, you'll see he had a long history and battle with substance abuse. Now, with all these recent links of pink cocaine back to Diddy, with the recent 100+ name indictment that's coming out with all of these charges against certain people of accomplices or whatever. There's all kinds of charges coming out. Who knows what the email said that Liam saw right before he decided to unalive himself. That's where the speculation comes in, and that's what's causing so much commotion about this case. Was this an accident? Was this an intentional unaliving? Or was this something more sinister? Was this a silencing? In order to really understand where Liam was in his head at that point, we've got to go back a little bit and understand how he got to that point. Liam Payne was born August 29th, 1993, and he was born in Wolverhampton, England. And I'm not really familiar with England too much to know where that is, anything about it, honestly. His mom, her name was Karen Payne. His dad's name was Jeff Payne. His mom was an infant baby nurse. And his dad, it says he was a fitter. I'm not sure what that even is. But he was actually born 3 weeks premature. And because of that, he had tons of health issues all the way up until he was about 4 years old. He was in and out of the hospital constantly. He was constantly being examined and doing all these tests and having all these things done to him, but he never ever got any answers as to what was actually wrong with him and causing him to be sick. It wasn't until they discovered that he had some scarring on one of his kidneys that they realized that that was causing his issues. So he went through this period where he actually had to take 32 shots in the morning and 32 shots at night just to help his kidney heal itself. So it sounds like he had a really difficult struggle through childhood in terms of being healthy and just had a really awful experience going through probably a really traumatic experience dealing with these health issues. Liam has 2 older sisters, Nicole and Ruth Payne, and that would make him the youngest of the 3. Now it sounds like they were able to figure out these health issues, and he actually turned out to be a really athletic young kid. He was a cross-country runner when he was in school, and it said that he was actually top 3 best 1500-meter runner for the school that he ran for. Liam went to St. Peter's Collegiate School, which is like a college prep school, and he actually passed 11 GCSEs, which are like a standardized test where you can kind of test out of grades. At the age of 16 or earlier, you can pass these tests to show that you have the knowledge needed to get through those grades, and it'll allow you to advance on to more advanced schooling. In which case, Liam actually went to study music technology at the Wolverhampton College, where he was from. Liam was introduced to show business at about the age of 12. He worked with this theater company, and he was actually in a play where he played Tony Manero from Saturday Night Fever. I'm not really familiar with Saturday Night Fever, but this is where he kind of got started with his acting, got his interest in singing, music. This is where he really started to get a taste for being on stage. Then in 2008, he took the chance of a lifetime and he went on X Factor and tried out his chances to see if he could be the next famous singer. And if you guys don't really know, X Factor is very much like The Voice or America's Got Talent or American Idol. It's like American Idol, but for England. And so he went on this show in 2008. He sang Fly Me to the Moon by Frank Sinatra, which got him through the first round. He did get cut at the boot camp stage, though. However, Simon Cowell actually changed his mind about him and called him back. He performed again, but he was unfortunately still cut. And Simon told him, like, look, I still like you. I think you need to come back in 2 years and you'll be more ready. And so that's exactly what Liam does. 2 years later, in 2010, he comes back for another audition. And this time he's 16 years old. And while he goes through this audition experience, kind of similar experience, he passes through the first round, but then during the boot camp stage, they don't think he's going to keep advancing through. So what they do is Simon Cowell kind of last minute throws together this group of 5 of the solo contestants and creates this little group, and they call it One Direction. Now, the group itself, they don't win and take the cake of the X Factor and blow everybody out of the water. They take 3rd in the competition, but it gets these guys a start, and it gets them a little bit of a name from this show. And from there, they just skyrocket to success. Within that same year, they signed to Simon Cowell's Psycho Entertainment label, and they also produced a #1 UK Billboard hit called What Makes You Beautiful, which I think I actually have heard that song. Now, it doesn't just chart in the UK, it also charts in the US, and these guys just become an overnight sensation. They start going on tour, they start writing music, and they start producing albums. These guys make 4 albums in a row. They're the only band in the history of the Billboard's charts to have all 4 of their albums debut at #1 on the charts, which is pretty crazy. In 58 years, nobody else has ever done that. And then One Direction comes through, and their first 4 albums all debut at #1. That's very impressive. So not only do they make history for that reason, but they become literally the most successful, explosive boy band of all time, surpassing the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, 98 Degrees, all of them. And those guys were huge.
Screw you,
I mean, if
the
you
boy
think about
bands.
the explosion that they experienced, it's very similar, but One Direction was even bigger than that. Now, for 4 years, the band is on the grind, touring, writing, just living the tour life. A lot of people might think that that sounds great, but honestly, that sounds really taxing. That sounds really hard. And one of the things that Liam talks a lot about is how all of the guys really just turned to drinking, because the only way to really keep these kids safe, because they were still minors at the time, they're still young guys, they're still not able to just go out and do whatever they want. So the easiest way to keep tabs on them was to just lock them in their room. These hotel rooms would always have a little mini bar and all these other things, so pretty much they decided to just start having little parties for one in their hotel room, and it just kind of became a habit to where that was their safety, that was their safe space. And then not only that, but the social anxiety that
Yeah.
comes with being a performer like that and being around so many crazed fans, especially fans like One Direction fans. He talks a lot about how his substance abuse really started during this time period because he was really turning to alcohol for comfort, and that was really the only thing that he used to cope through this whole time period. Being a young person who had no coping skills and was also not learning about any coping skills, but was just grinding as hard as he possibly could grind. Now the band makes it up to 2015, and at that point Zayn Malik decides that he wants to be the first one to break out of the group. He starts to get these feelings that the band isn't really gonna have much of a future. The other band members didn't re-sign their contracts. He's just got bad feelings about it, and on top of that, the band members were starting to get really sick of each other, and they were constantly fighting and bickering with each other, to the point where it just made sense for the band to start moving a different direction instead of the one direction. Malik decides that he's going to break off and try to be the first one to get his solo career started. So in 2015, he leaves the band, and that leaves a bit of a hole, especially in a group with 5 guys, and they usually all have different placements in terms of their voice and their style, and so that left Liam kind of picking up a lot of the slack. He had to pick up a lot of the writing, and he kind of stepped in Malik's place to replace him as their falsetto. Kind of helped keep the band rolling, but he definitely took on more of the responsibilities on his shoulders from this point forward. Now that doesn't mean at the end of the troubles for the band. In fact, that was just the beginning of the end. Over the next year, the band continues to not get along, things are more stressful than ever, and they're really not able to focus on a solid future or agree on much of anything. So after completing all the responsibilities that they had already scheduled as a band, the band decided to take an indefinite hiatus in 2016, and One Direction was no more. However, we do see the birth of multiple solo careers from this because all of those guys are truly talented, and so we see like Harry Styles blowing up, we see Niall Horan blowing up, and Liam also starts his own little solo career. And so sometime in 2015, he actually signs with a record label called Republic Records. Now this is where one of the other ties with Diddy comes in, because Republic Records is an American record label in New York City. The parent company for Republic Records is Universal Music Group. Universal Music Group is where Sean Combs worked before starting Bad Boy Records, and up until 2015, Sean Combs would have been very much available to Liam Payne for sure, as a up-and-coming, successful young artist. And as we all know, Diddy loves really successful, promising young male artists. Now to go even further with that, we know that Liam and Diddy crossed paths at some point because in 2017, Liam actually goes on the Graham Norton show and describes an experience that he had where he sees Diddy and Jay-Z, Leo DiCaprio, all these big names hanging out at a party. And he decides at some point he's going to go up and meet and introduce himself to Diddy. And as he goes up, he shakes his hand and says hi to him. And the only thing that Diddy does is just let out this super maniacal, evil laugh. And he talks about how this is where really I do all my training. One of the longest handshakes of his entire life. And from there, he was kind of creeped out, but he was like not really sure what to do. So he's like, well, I guess I'll go try to talk to somebody else. So he goes and he tries to talk to Jay-Z. And as he leans in to talk to Jay-Z, Jay-Z's bodyguard just like shoves him out of the way. Like, you don't lean in to talk to Jay-Z, bruh.
I had that with P. Diddy. I went over to say hello to P. Diddy, and Jay-Z was there. I went over and I thought, I was trying to think who's the easy target in this scenario, who's the one that you go to say the hello, and I'm thinking, I saw him and get him to the Greek, I'm going to go over there and say hello to him, so I thought, P. Diddy. So I went out to shake his hand. And I shook his hand and I was, oh, nice to meet you. And he's going, but the longest handshake ever. And I'm like sat there just looking in P. Diddy's eyes like, when is this going to end?
I go this way.
The worst of it happened.
How do you switch
the
over?
worst of it happened, there was a whole thing with Jay-Z and I went to lean in to speak to him. But you can't lean in to speak to Jay-Z, you're not allowed to lean in. And his bodyguard just like shoved me like this and I went flying across the room and I was like, right, I'm just going to go and sit over here with Eddie Goldman.
That experience alone has sparked a whole bunch of people talking about the conspiracy that he was scared of Diddy. He had these really fearful ideas about who Diddy was. And because of that fear and because of that interaction, people think that Liam had a reason to be scared of Diddy, and they think that reason is because he had something to do with, well, Diddy's parties, all of the allegations against Diddy, all of the things that are going on right now. So the likelihood that they were at other parties together is probably pretty likely. Even though there's not many instances recorded or known about Liam interacting with Sean Combs, the possibility is still there. And there's a whole lot of things about Liam Payne's life that are really not well known because he has these periods where he goes in and out of the spotlight. Now, Liam's solo career actually starts off with a bang. He releases in 2017, Strip That Down, which ends up being a number 10 release on the Billboard Top 100. And within that same year, he releases 2 more singles, Get Low and Bedroom Floor, both of which rank top 30 in the Billboard Top 100. So he's starting out hot. He's got a good background, people still know who he is, and he's now got this solo career that is seeming to be successful. Things after One Direction may not be so bad for Liam. During this same year, Liam actually has a son named Bear with his current girlfriend at the time. Her name's Cheryl. Now, their relationship only lasts about another year before they decide to split up. But Liam's coming out of the gates hot. He's got a fiery solo career. His songs are hitting the charts. He is, and by all accounts, doing really well. But this is when his personal life starts to go downhill. This is when his addiction and substance use starts to hit an all-time high. And he also starts to date a young lady named Maya Henry. And Maya is a model. She's a gorgeous young lady, and their relationship is kind of on and off, but it gets so serious that they do decide to get engaged to each other. And then sometime in 2020, they break off the engagement. Then they get back together, and they decide to get re-engaged. But then in 2022, they finally decide to break everything off for good. It's over the course of this period of their relationship where it seems like his substance abuse got really, really bad. Now, sometime in 2021, Liam actually goes on the Diary of a CEO podcast, and he's talking a lot about his alcoholism. He's talking a lot about his addictions journey and how he's recently gotten sober. And it sounds like by the time of that podcast, he had been sober for maybe like 3 months. So still pretty fresh in the journey, but it sounds like he was at least focused on it. And when he starts to get sober, you can see him start to make moves in his career, and you can see him start to really focus and buckle down. And then when you see him start to kind of fall away from things and you don't see much activity from him, that's usually when he's starting to fall more into his addiction patterns. And it's unfortunate because I feel like he is such a great talent, but with such hard addiction issues that he's struggling with and such difficult mental health issues he's struggling with as well. It sounds like he's very envious of his bandmates. It sounds like he has a lot of, I don't know, pressure around being successful and being a certain person and upholding a certain image. And I think that that can get to anybody, honestly. But in 2019, he releases his debut album, LP1, and the album does decently well. It doesn't flop by any means, but it's not like a #1 top hit. And I think around this same time, he's got, you know, members of the band are also doing their solo thing, and their music is performing really well also. I think that he's got a lot of pressure to continue to maintain his status and to continue to try and keep up with his former bandmates. And on top of that, he's struggling with an intense addiction issue, which automatically throws your brain into kind of a different realm of existence. Now, fast forward up to June of 2022. At this point, Liam and Maya have split because likely all the issues with his addiction, and it sounds like there's a lot more going on with those two, and they decide to split for good. So in June of 2022, Liam is seeming to be back to his old ways. One of the things he's heavily criticized for is for going on Logan Paul's podcast. And when he goes on the podcast, he's just kind of throwing his former bandmates from One Direction under the bus. He's talking about how Simon Cowell made One Direction solely for him. He's just got this arrogant, cocky attitude, but above everything else, he's like visibly drunk on the podcast. And it's just not a good look, especially when he just came out of this whole podcast with Diary of a CEO less than a year prior, and he's talking about his sober journey and how he's working on getting sober and focusing on his health. And then the next thing we see really with him in the spotlight is this podcast with Logan Paul. and it's just not a good look for him. It definitely gets a
Not a
lot
good look,
of
bruv.
backlash
Especially
online.
anything with Logan
People
Paul.
are
Not a good
sending
look,
him
bro.
quite a bit of hate for this whole
Yeah, it's in
issue,
the trash.
and he doesn't take this hate stuff very well. He doesn't take the public shame
coin.
that they seem to put on him very well, and it causes him to dive deeper into his addiction and dive deeper into this depression that he's in. Now, there's a few other things that happened during this time period that are in the public spotlight, not nearly as big as this, but things that just cause Liam to realize that he's spiraling back down again. And he kind of disappears. He falls off the map until sometime in 2023. When he comes back with this random post that he makes on YouTube, and the post is titled "I'm Back," and he talks about how he's back from having focused on himself for the last 100 days.
My last upload was May the 1st or something like that. 31st. Wow, it's been a while. I just took a little bit of time.
Don't
I'm
hurt
actually
me.
sorry for the MIA. You guys know there was a few reasons why I did that. And I just needed to take a little bit of time out for myself, actually, because I kind of became somebody who I didn't really recognise anymore, and I'm sure you guys didn't either. So last time you guys saw me, I was in Minneapolis. It was a good time, part of it. I met some great friends.
That's
I
where
met
I'm
Gary Vee, who you all know is a very inspirational person. And then I went on the Logan Paul podcast. Can't even say it. I mean, it was nice to meet Logan, the man behind the many videos. I still got a lot of respect
That's
for those
my
guys,
name.
actually. I really like them. I'm not going to let anybody else take any blame for stuff that I said. I know there was a lot of hate online for them, and I actually thought it was wrong. In fact, they didn't really do anything wrong with their job, really. I think, for me, a lot of what I just said just came from the wrong place. I was so angry at what was going on around me, and instead of taking a look inwards, I decided to look outwards at everybody else, and I just think, I just took it out on everybody else, which is just wrong, really, and my own frustrations with my own career and where I kind of landed. I took shots at everybody else, which is wrong. So obviously I want to apologise for that in the first instance, because that's definitely not me. Obviously one of the biggest remarks I made was about the One Direction thing, and a lot of self-protection, I suppose, in that moment more than anything. The rest of the boys are really stuck by me, and when I needed them most, they kind of came to the rescue. Even Zayn as well, which is why I did send him a little thank you online. Actually, it came across really big-headed, didn't it?
There's only one moon left, apparently.
Back. I think in those moments when you make these videos, you don't realise the impact
But
that
where?
you're having on other people.
Where would it be?
Looking back on it, the whole podcast was, let's say, a big L, and not in the Liam kind. In fact, it's probably one of those life-changing moments that saved my life in a way, and without it I wouldn't have, I went through a lot, don't get me wrong, but to actually arrive where I am here today, and where I hope we're going to go forward together, it could be one of those makers or breakers.
Eventually it comes out that he was actually in rehab for 100 days. He must have checked himself into rehab. And if you check yourself into rehab for 100 days, it's usually something more serious than alcohol, because they usually only do like 30, 60-day programs for that. So I would imagine he was on harder things at that point, and it was something that he needed serious help with. So good for him for going to rehab. And once he gets out of rehab, he actually seems to be making moves finally, because up until this point, he'd released that debut in 2019, but it's now 2023. He's not done any more music. He's not really done much else in terms of moving forward with his solo music career. I mean, that's got to cause some pressure and stress in and of itself, but then couple that with him fighting an addiction issue, it sounds like once he finally got that under control, the first thing he wanted to do was buckle down and start focusing on getting his solo career back up and running.
Why you're just hanging out right
One of
here.
the other things that he talks about in this video is just an
an
apology for his actions on the Logan Paul podcast, and for the things that he said about his former bandmates, and just overall for his actions on the podcast. And then not only that, but he goes into a little bit about his new diagnosis, and he doesn't really explain it specifically, but he kind of just, I don't know, he kind of just rambles about some of the symptoms really more than anything.
I feel like I've
but
been here.
based on what he's talking about, it sounds a lot like he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He basically talks about feeling super manic and making these really crazy, awful decisions, and then feeling super depressed, and then those are the feelings that causes him to dive deeper into these substance abusing tendencies. So it's I mean, honestly, it's a really good revelation for him to have had, because bipolar disorder is a very debilitating disorder if you don't have it under control or even know about it. It can make you feel like you have no control or no handle on your own life. But to be fair, he looks really good in these videos. He looks motivated. He looks amped. And not only that, but he announces that he's going to pump out a second debut album, LP2. And then he also talks about how he's going to do a South American tour. However, a week before his South American tour is supposed to start, he goes to the hospital and he's admitted, we're not 100% sure, but the official story is that he was admitted for some sort of kidney issues. He had some sort of either kidney failure or some sort of kidney disease, something like that. And I mean, he does have a history with scarring on his kidneys, so it's very possible that that was true, but people speculate and wonder, was this just a cover-up for him having another substance abuse related episode and it landed him in the emergency room. To make matters worse, he ends up having to cancel his South American tour, and he goes online and makes a post saying he has to cancel the tour, and unfortunately his health is taking priority and he, you know, can't go forward. It's the best thing for him to stay home and heal, and so he not only has to cancel the tour, but then 2 weeks later he's back in the hospital with more kidney related issues. And so that's why everybody seems to wonder, is this really actual health issues, or is this something more self-caused, and they're just covering up for him? They don't want to shame him. They don't want to out him for what's going on. So maybe they're just giving out a cover story. One of the things that struck me as a little strange in his videos was that he referred to himself as being unwell, which is usually what somebody would say when they are going through like withdrawal, as opposed to being actually sick. Just the terminology, the word choice that he made, it just sounds something like, I hate to say it, but like what a junkie would say. Yeah, I was sick, I was unwell, I haven't been feeling well. They just always say it in that kind of a way to make it seem like they're not withdrawing from substances, they're actually just feeling sick. And so the way that he phrased it, that's kind of how I felt, the same exact kind of feeling. Now you'd expect to hear something from him or something after this, but nothing really. Like, it seems like he focused on his health, and then 3 weeks later, the next thing that anybody sees about him is he is filming a trip where he's traveling through Ireland in a van, and he's filming the trip, just documenting his experience. And I guess while he's driving, he gets pulled over for speeding, and this speeding ticket not only gets him a 293-pound fine, but it also gets him suspended from even being able to drive on this trip. It kind of just shows he's still being reckless, and so it's kind of up in the air as to what was really going on in his life at this point. There isn't really much activity until about December of 2023, and then we finally see an announcement, and he releases a new single, and that's really like the only activity we see from him. It was not something that was high on the charts. And unfortunately for him, it didn't really get a really great response. Not only that, but there wasn't really any promotion being done on it. It just seemed like nothing happened. Like the album dropped and then nothing. For it to not perform that well, I can imagine that was pretty crushing, especially with how he already seems to have these image issues and these self-confidence issues. So just another thing compounding on his life at this point that seems to be driving him more towards addiction. Then just a couple months later, Maya Henry actually announces in May of 2024 that she's going to be releasing a fictional book that is based on hers and Liam's relationship. And in this book, she talks a lot about different types of abuse and different types of just like mistreatment and just like the conditions that she was subjected to while dating him. And so this is just yet another blow to his reputation, his career, his image. It doesn't sound like he took these things very well. Now by this point, he's already dating Kate Cassidy, so he's been with her for a couple months now. And a lot of the videos that he's seen with her, it doesn't seem like he's really excited to be there. He just seems kind of aloof, kind of irritated. It just seems like maybe he's not feeling like himself, that's for sure. And a lot of speculation says that he seemed like he might have been using again. The next real break that Liam got wasn't until August of 2024. He was actually going to be part of one of the 3 hosts for a show called Building a Band, where they try and put together these super bands out of these different singers. And so this was going to be a really good opportunity for him, and it sounded like it was going to be his next big break. And unfortunately, that kind of put a halt on any sort of production on his album being released anytime in the near future. And so in September of 2024, he actually got notice from the record label that his album was kind of being shelved for the time being. And they also had another project that was supposed to be going on at the time which would have been like a One Direction kind of like a reunion tour, and he was supposed to be headwaying that project, but for whatever reason they shelved that project as well. Maybe because they were feeling like he just wasn't reliable, they couldn't put a lot of confidence in him to actually be there and be what they need for those projects to actually be successful. I mean, addiction is, that's like one of the main things with it. You're just not reliable. You can't keep promises to yourself, let alone to other people. But by this point, he's feeling amazingly frustrated. The only real answer to things, it seems like, is to just get away. So him and Kate decide they're going to take a 5-day vacation, and on the 30th of September they decide to head down to Buenos Aires in Argentina. And this is where he was supposed to be touring before his tour got canceled, and he ended up in the hospital with his kidney stuff. And so I don't know why he necessarily chose to go down there. What he says his reason was to go see Niall Horan play down in Argentina, and he was actually playing, like I had mentioned before, at the same arena that Liam was supposed to be playing at when he had scheduled his tour. So maybe there was a little bit of resentment there. Who really knows his actual reasoning for wanting to go down there? But him and Kate spend a few days just enjoying the scenery, playing polo, hanging out with each other, laughing, goofing around, sleeping in. And there's some videos that he posts talking a lot about just how chill and
I gotta find somebody else.
Easygoing the whole experience has been. They do end up going to see Niall perform. He's super stoked. He posts a bunch of pictures and shows his support for his former bandmate and friend. And so that's really cool to see. The one thing that people didn't seem to like about Liam being there was he seemed to be kind of like just seeking attention. Like he was in his box and viewing from his box. He kept trying to get fans' attention, and he kept posing for fans. And at one point, he was leading people in the Macarena, and
look at that.
the security guard even tried to come out and get him to stop, and he refused to stop. So it's just weird. He seems to have this real desperation for the spotlight and that fandom that he had before in One Direction.
She lost her handbag?
And I think now that he's lost that, it seems like he's experiencing a lot of feelings around that, a lot of trauma maybe around that. And it's something that he really is seeming to have a hard time with. A lot of people even speculate that the only reason he even went down to Niall's show was so that he could, engage with some of the fan base, because he knows that anytime he engages with any one of the other members from One Direction, it's a media frenzy, and social media blows up, and it's an instant sensation for him, and he's able to kind of get his name and face back out in the media. I think he has a whole lot of, jealous feelings at this point about his bandmates being successful, but him not being as successful and having these deep struggles with addiction. Now, maybe they just weren't ready to return back to the real world. We're not really sure why, but this 5-day vacation turns into a 12-day vacation. And like I mentioned before, Kate Cassidy has to leave sooner than Liam does. And on the 12th of October, she actually leaves, and this is just going to catch us up to where we started our story.
One more.
Now, things get pretty real for Liam real fast, because on the same day that Kate heads home and heads back to Florida, Liam actually gets served with a cease and desist letter saying that he needs to stop contacting and trying to, essentially stalking Maya Henry. She claims that he was continuously blowing up her phone, emailing, calling, blowing up her mom's phone, just doing all these crazy things. And she even posts like a TikTok video talking about her experience with all of this. And it's even one of the reasons that kind of leads her into why she wants to write this book about her experience with him, to kind of spread awareness and help other people that might be in the same situation or something similar.
Y'all don't even know what happens behind closed doors or in private. Ever since we broke up, he messages me, will blow up my phone, mind you. Not only from his phone number, it's always from different phone numbers too, so I never know where it's going to come from. He'll create new iCloud accounts to iMessage me.
Sailor hat.
It's always a damn new iCloud account. I'm like, every time I see one pop up on my phone, I'm like, here we fucking go again. Also, will email me. And he does this when he gets his phone taken away. Also, not only me,
kind of like that golf
but he'll blow up my mom's phone. Is that normal behavior to you? But I'm crazy for making a 5-second TikTok about something that he brought to the internet. He has all these people on his damn Snapchat, which he has for years apparently, that he messages or whatever. and on Instagram, and he says that he preys on One Direction fans because they will always be loyal to him and they won't tell on him. They're never gonna realize what they've done is bad, or they do realize, but they know that they can get away with it, which is what has happened to him for so many damn years. Everything gets swept under the rug, everything gets hidden for him. I don't know who the hell is behind all of this, but nothing ever comes out about him.
Even more than that, Maya goes on this podcast and she is talking about a podcast that Liam actually was on, where he had released some information and kind of talked a little bit about their relationship. And so she goes on a podcast and is kind of sharing some of her experience of their relationship and how he uses the idea of unaliving himself or harming himself to kind of get his way, which is a very narcissistic tendency, a very narcissistic trait, trying to basically guilt trip somebody into feeling sorry for you in order to manipulate them into talking.
Doesn't give you the right.
And so that's essentially what he would do, and that's what she said, is like that's mental and emotional abuse, and she knows that the kind of things that he does, so she knows that it's a very real possibility that he actually could hurt himself, so she doesn't not take it seriously. So every time if he says things like that, she takes it very seriously. But that's a very manipulative tactic to kind of get his way. So she talks a lot about that. And in that video posting on that same day,
triggering my dog,
it just creates a whole whirlwind of a media storm that Liam is going to end up having to come back to the U.S. to. He mildly is going to have to deal with it over in Argentina, but not the same way he's going to have to deal with it in the U.S. So this could be a contributing factor to why he stayed behind and Kate ended up going back to Florida. Not really sure. Now, moving up to October 16th, the morning that he actually was unalived, he actually talked to a friend of his named Jody Richards, and she says that he reported being super chill and he was having a really good morning. He was looking forward to the day. He said it was a really beautiful day, and he was just looking forward to it. So she said that nothing really seemed out of place, didn't seem out of the ordinary, and there was no visible signs that would have clued her into the fact that he was going to do the things that he did later that day. So that leads us to wonder, like, what happened in those hours of time that he just snapped, and what happened that he decided to jump off this balcony. What most people speculate is it had a lot to do with whatever this email was that he got when he was in the lobby of the hotel. The girl Rebecca that had seen him on his computer said that it looked as if he had read some sort of email or some sort of form and realized that it made him really mad, and that's when he proceeded to smash the laptop on the ground.
Goddamn band.
And said, fuck this shit, and then stormed off.
In the lobby, just waiting for some people to arrive, and that's when we had multiple encounters with
my
Liam.
super spin dance move.
Multiple times had come down to the lobby, was causing a disturbance.
In this move.
Kept being escorted back up to his room. There was an incident where he was very frustrated and was smashing his laptop in the lobby. And then the final time he came back down, he actually passed out in the lobby.
Hit them symbols.
Started looked like convulsing a little bit.
Yeah.
Had to be physically like taken back up to his room, and that was about 5 minutes before the eventual incident that happened. So I was in my hotel room.
What is that?
2 floors below him, directly below, and saw the body fall through. Looking out the window, saw the body fall, and obviously heard the aftermath and could see his body on the ground afterwards.
Whatever this email said is likely going to be a main contributing factor to why he went upstairs and lost complete control. But I would also go as far as to say that whatever substances he was on likely were a major contributing factor to what he ended up doing, which was jumping off of this balcony. And pink cocaine is not a light substance. I mean, it's a mixture of multiple super heavy substances. And like the video originally that we started this whole episode with was saying, it's only a matter of time before fentanyl sneaks its way in there. And then we're going to see more people losing their life.
Right there.
And so that's why I wanted to bring this up, because I know some people might say it's a loose connection, but I don't feel like it is. I feel like it's not a coincidence that since Diddy has been linked to this pink cocaine stuff being more prevalent and being trafficked through his networks, I believe it's very likely that he has been helping the Venezuelan cartels traffic this stuff into the U.S. and he might be a big part of this network that's getting these substances into our country. So it is something that is costing. This is now the second story of someone. My first story, 2 people died. In this story, Liam died, who is a superstar, phenomenal singer, songwriter, and by all accounts, just someone who unfortunately struggled with addiction. When these things are readily available and they're being pushed on people and they're being glorified in the media, it is scary to think that more people could fall victim to this substance and more people could experience the same thing that Liam went through. One of the other major links between Liam and this whole pink cocaine and Diddy network is the fact that he was working at the same, under the same parent company of a record label. So it's very likely that the two of them crossed paths at some point or were at least at the same functions, or who knows, they could have had a more in-depth relationship than even we understand. With Bad Boy Records being under UMB as a parent company from 2009 through 2015, Liam having started his solo career in 2015, there is definitely a link there. Plus, that was all in New York City. Now, 3 weeks prior to his passing, Liam actually started renting this $1 million mansion in Wellington, Florida, and it's like $9,500 a month that him and Kate are staying in this place. Also, I put in Diddy's address and typed in Wellington, Florida to see just how far away they are, and it's only 2 hours north of Miami, Florida, 2 hours north of Diddy's mansion in Miami, Florida, to be exact. And now I'm not even saying that it was Diddy that was supplying him, but whatever this network of pink cocaine supply that Diddy has going is what has been supplying people in the Miami area, in the New York area, in the Los Angeles area, and maybe even in more areas than that. I've read that there's pink cocaine flooding Colorado as well, which is where I'm at. So who knows really what the situation is, but the coincidence is too strange for it to just be a coincidence to me. I haven't heard of pink cocaine one time, and now I've heard of it 3 times in less than a month. So I think that that's an interesting coincidence for sure. And then one of the last pieces I wanted to bring up is that there is some speculation that it is possible that the email that Liam got could have been something along the lines of an indictment. Some people say he might have been asked to testify against Diddy in the upcoming trial. That could all be grasping at straws, but it also could have some validity, especially with the fact that he was a high-profile celebrity in the music industry that could have had ties and could have been, with how gone he was in his addiction, in his substance abuse, it's very likely that he was at those types of parties, or at least big celebrity parties that were around those types of people. So the likelihood is very high. When you do substances, you aren't the same type of person that you normally are, and you do things that you wouldn't normally do. So whether we believe he would do it or not doesn't necessarily change the fact that he may or may not have been at those parties, and there could be some indictments that were coming his way. So there's a lot of people that think that either he was going to testify against Diddy and he had him silenced, or another likely option would be that these indictments maybe named him as an accomplice or in some way guilty of something, and so that might have been too much for him to handle, and maybe that was why he chose to end it. We really don't know without seeing what these emails are that actually were on his computer before he smashed it, and maybe we won't since he smashed that laptop. I'm not really sure, but at this point things still remain a mystery. And I think that's what attracted me the most about this case, is there's really no question as to whether there was somebody else involved, but what were his motives, especially for somebody who seemingly had everything and decided to throw it all away, and their substance use eventually led to their ultimate downfall. But pink cocaine is not actually that cool of a substance, and it's something to be very wary of. It's something to be very cautious of. If you're out and you get approached by somebody who has it, it's just, you can't really trust the substances you're doing anymore. And with fentanyl being so prevalent now, it's almost too scary to even want to try any sort of powdered substances, or any substances really. It's hard to want to go out and do that because the likelihood that there's something that I don't want in there is very high. And so if you guys are taking substances, just be mindful of that, be careful, and these things are not to be taken lightly, and they can cause serious side effects, including unaliving. It is pretty obvious that Liam struggled with addiction, and at that point in time he did have a mountain ton of shit on his plate. It seemed like the daunting pressure and thought of all the negative publicity and all the negativity he was going to have to face headed back to the United States might have been mounting up. And then on top of that, some speculate that he might have lost his music deal, which could have been the email that he got. The music deal he had for his new album to be released actually got taken away, and they let him go from the label. And then on top of that, there's also rumors that his publicist left him just shortly before this all happened. So he could have just been experiencing an ultra low moment in his bipolar disorder, coupled with all of these mounting just struggles and stressors. It could have just been what made him snap.
Now I'm rushing it.
On top of all the substance use, because, I mean, clearly there was a lot of substances being used that day. But what do you guys think? I want to know what you guys think about this case. I want to know what you think about the Diddy stuff. I want to know what you guys think about this whole pink cocaine explosion, because everybody says it's been around for forever, but I disagree. Like, I think it's still a fairly new thing, and I think fairly new can be a relative term. I think within the last 5 to 10 years, this stuff has been popping up, but it has only recently started to gain any sort of media or any national attention. Most of that is due to the Diddy allegations, but we're starting to see all these instances where pink cocaine is popping up, and I hate to say it, but a lot of the time it's from Florida or surrounding areas. But there's allegations that Diddy's working with the Venezuelan cartel, bringing the stuff in, and so who knows what the truth is. We might find out coming soon with all these indictments and all the charges that are, you know, coming to trial soon. But
don't
honestly,
fuck with that pink cocaine
really know until that happens.
It's not even cocaine.
I really appreciate you guys sitting and hanging out with me for this long. And if you need another sobering story, I will put another one right here.
No.
And if you need to watch all of them, I'm going to put a playlist right here that has all of my sobering stories, so you can binge watch them all. And that's how you can help me the best, because when you binge watch for a creator, YouTube realizes, man, this creator really keeps people on YouTube for a while, and they'll push my videos out more, and they'll recommend them to more people.
I'm doing my part then,
if you guys want to support the channel, that's how you can do that for free. And I really do appreciate
sobering
each and every one of you
stories.
guys. But until next time, thanks for hanging out with me. And as always, comment down below what you think. If you have any case ideas, let me know.
Check it out.
But until next time,
good work.
Later, sobers.
Oh my God. Let me show you what I got.
Fuck.
Truth matters. For example, both President Trump and President Clinton are innocent of any wrongdoing.
Oh God, Lady Ghislaine. What a waste of time that was. I just plead the fifth for everything until I get clemency. 'Cause I'm a little bitch. The Anne Heche thing, that's some craziness. I'm going off of thumbnails here. Can't really read projector screen that I'm watching this shit off of. What do we got here? Why God lets evil people win? Why does he? I kind of want to know. Big question. Why the evilest people have all the fucking power and money? Huh? And now I kind of want to know. What's this AI video going to
If evil people are winning, this is what God sees that you do not. Do not skip. You have watched
AI
them
video.
mock God and get promoted.
Yeah.
You have seen them lie, cheat, destroy lives, and still walk away with the crown.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Meanwhile, you are doing everything right, and it feels like you are getting crushed for it.
That's right.
If you have ever looked at the wicked winning and thought, where is God in this?
Where's
you
God
are not
in this?
alone. You are not weak. You are human.
I am a human.
And you are standing exactly where the psalmist stood when he wrote, I almost lost my footing. I nearly slipped. For I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. But here is what happened next. He entered the sanctuary of God. Then he understood their final destiny. That shift in perspective changed everything. And that is exactly what is about to happen to you right now. Because by the time this message is over, you are going to see what God sees. You are going to understand why he allows what he allows.
What?
And you are going to realize that the wicked are not winning.
Come
They are
on,
walking
man.
into a trap they built themselves.
BS, dude.
Before we dive in, do me a favor. Type
No, I'm
this
not
in the
gonna hit the
comments
fucking
right
like
now.
button.
God sees what I cannot. Just those 5 words. God
Oh,
sees
you
what
want
I
me to comment?
cannot.
Sorry.
This is going to be your reminder throughout this message. And while you are at it, hit that like button and subscribe. Because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why the wicked are not actually winning. And you are going to need this truth
Sure
every
about
time
that?
doubt tries to creep back in. Now let us start with something most
I mean, we
believers are
could be
too afraid
watching
to
the
admit out
downfall
loud.
of them finally.
Part 1. You are angry at God, and that is okay. Let us be real.
Angry at him.
You are not just upset about
Wonder
evil
what the
people
rules
winning.
are, man.
You are angry at God for letting them win.
Kind of.
You have been carrying that anger for a while now, have not you?
Bit.
Maybe you have tried to pray it away. Tried to
Maybe.
spiritual talk yourself out of it. Tried to fake like everything is fine.
Yeah.
But deep down, there is a rage burning that you are too afraid to admit out loud. Because good Christians are not supposed to be mad at God, right? Good believers are supposed to smile, trust, and keep their doubts to themselves. But let me tell you something that might shock you.
Let me tell you something.
Your anger does not make you a bad Christian.
Good.
It makes you an honest one.
That's right.
You know who else got angry? Asaph, the
Fucking
worship
Jesus
leader,
did. One
the
time.
psalm writer, the guy whose job was literally to praise God. In Psalm 73, he looked around and said, I have kept my heart pure for nothing. The wicked are healthy, strong, and prosperous, while I am suffering.
Yeah.
He was furious. He was confused. He was ready to walk away. And God did not strike him down for it. God gave him perspective. Here is what most people will not tell you.
What's that?
If you were not angry, that would actually be more concerning. Because anger at injustice means you still believe justice should exist. It means somewhere deep in your soul, you know the world is supposed to work differently. You are not mad because you stopped believing in good. You are mad because you still do. So let me give you permission right now.
Yeah, there we
God
go.
can handle your anger. He is
I
not
kinda wanna
scared
go
of
over
your
there.
questions.
What's up there? A
He
power
is not
moon.
threatened by your doubt. He would rather have your honest rage than your fake worship any day of the week.
Shit.
But here is the thing.
Oh. See
Your
where this
anger
goes.
is not the problem. It is the starting point. Because once you stop pretending everything is
Oh,
fine,
how'd you get here?
once you stop faking your faith,
What the hell?
then, and only then, can God show you what you have been missing. You are angry because you are looking at this whole thing from ground level, and I am about to show you what it looks like from God's view. If you have not already, drop that comment right now. God sees what I cannot. Type it out.
Bro, 1 second.
God sees what I cannot. This is your last chance before we go deeper, and you are going to need this truth.
Last chance to do
anchored
this
in your
comment.
spirit.
Better make this
Stay
comment.
with me to the end, because I am about to show you exactly what God sees that you have been missing, and it is going to change everything about how you view the people you thought were winning. So what does God see that you do not? Let me show you the hidden trap. Part 2. What God sees that you are missing.
God, AI videos.
You see
Fucking-
success. God sees a setup. When you look at the wicked rising, climbing higher, getting richer, gaining influence, it feels like they are winning.
Does.
But let me give you a different angle. What if they are not being promoted? What if they are being positioned for a fall? Think about it like this.
I mean,
imagine someone
kinda
climbing
feels
to the
true,
top
too.
floor of a
There's all
skyscraper
this shit
that has
coming
no
out about
foundation.
their, little cult going
The higher
on.
they go, the more impressive it looks from the
So
outside.
why would God allow that cult to
But the
exist
whole
for so
time,
goddamn
the
long
structure
when they're eating
underneath
babies and
is
shit?
crumbling. They do not see it.
Fucking who knows how long.
The crowd does not see it. But the architect knows.
Just to like have them publicly fall.
And when
like
that
this?
building
I
comes
guess.
down, the height they reached will not matter. It will only determine how hard they hit the ground. That is what God sees. You see
Yeah, but
one
they're gonna
frame
take
of
us
the
all
movie,
down with them. That's the fucking
one
scary
snapshot,
part.
one moment where it looks like
Because you
evil
let
is
them
on
have so
top.
much power and influence.
But God
to the point
sees
where
the
if they go
entire
down, the
film
whole
from beginning
fucking
to end.
society will go down.
He sees the trap they are walking into. He sees the pride that is blinding them.
When fucking 10 billionaires,
He sees the
trillionaires own
emptiness
the
behind the
fucking
smile
world,
and the crumbling soul
and
behind
they
the
crumble.
curtain. Look
Guess
at
who else
Haman in the Book
crumbles
of
with
Esther.
him? Everybody
This man
else.
rose to the highest position in the kingdom. He had power, influence, the king's
Shit,
favor.
I gotta get the power
He
mode,
built
dude.
gallows 75 feet high
Guess I'm
to execute
participating
the
in
man he
festival. Let's
hated.
go.
And for a moment, it looked like Haman had won. But then God flipped the script. The very gallows Haman built to destroy someone else became the place where he was destroyed. Same structure, different body hanging from it. God let Haman rise high enough to expose his own wickedness. Let him build the...
Maybe another time. Halloween. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Hey, I know this guy. I've seen him on some stuff. Something has changed. You're right. What has changed? Millennials were brainwashed. Here we go.
There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof
I'm gonna get deep.
Are the ways of death. With what's coming out in the Epstein files with the cultural elites in this country, and this extends the roots of Epstein, the tendrils of Epstein were everywhere. We're talking about the academic classes, the actors, the musicians, the politicians, even reaching into members of the royal family in
Hey,
England.
it's classic Mario. Don't fall in that oil. Ow.
Now, I want to be clear that just because someone's name is in the Epstein files doesn't mean necessarily that they're guilty. Even because there's an accusation doesn't mean necessarily that they're guilty. But it seems clear at this point that the guilt runs very deep. And my question is, who looked the other way? Because a lot of people must have looked the other way. Harvey Weinstein, Diddy, Epstein. In New York, in California, in LA, in DC, Epstein used financial influence, financial ability to invest. Clearly this guy's name was spread around. This guy can help you invest your money, make money, etc. He had power, influence, and blackmail, and a little something extra on the side. This runs deep in Western civilization, and it's sickening to me. A guy recently put out a video talking about how millennials have been brainwashed, and I just want to share my experience here,
Hyperborean
because I think
reality
he's dead right. I think millennials, but not just millennials, have been brainwashed. One of my favorite Shakespeare's play was
Yes, we
Macbeth.
were.
He should have died year after.
And
All tricked
Lady
into,
Macbeth is one of the most notorious characters.
Going for
in
that
all of
old
literature.
American dream that's
Lady
totally
Macbeth lusted for power and spurred her husband. She used his faulting ambition, if you will,
Upside down
to
here.
commit terrible violence for power.
My screen's upside down.
And I think there are probably
never
a
mind.
lot of Macbeths and Lady Macbeths in the United States and the West right now. I'd really like to know who looked the other way while people were being abused and trafficked and treated as slaves. But I'll tell you, to some degree, it was the same people who were behind the cultural zeitgeist of our lifetimes, to every living generation. I've taken some time to study how American religion and ideas and culture have played out with fundamentalism of secular culture. And it's fairly disturbing to me. When I was growing up, everybody was into the sex comedies of the 90s and the 2000s. And I remember being a young man who had, at this point in my life, had chosen to try to be a good man, to do the right thing and live a decent, honorable life. And though, you know, I'm not a perfect person, I'm just not. But I remember being torn but also disgusted by the way popular culture in my country was going. So I didn't want to, you know, live in a box. I wanted to experience culture and cinema and music. But I remember thinking, this is one of the reasons I think I'm so drawn towards classical music, now sacred music, but also 40s music, even 50s music, because it was just something more wholesome. Because if you remember Chopin's melody set to a love song, and that love song, I don't know if it was Doris Day who sang it back way before we were born. The love song was about the other, but so much of music was Nicki Minaj and music in the 90s. The love was about pleasure, disposable pleasure, and really about themselves. And so the love was literally self-centered more and more. And I remember being grossed out and just concerned because though I'm a male, and white male, and I was young and the sex drive was kicking in pretty hard. I remember also thinking, you know, with Britney Spears and Amanda Bynes and Christina Aguilera and the movies and everything else, this isn't the way it should be.
Go back to that freaking
Can't we have some
underground place to
decency
grab
about
another
it?
moon?
And now you look at the same starlets and their lives are ruined. Many of them. A deep problem in Hollywood, clearly something dark is happening in Hollywood. So many of these people turn out so messed up, so broken. And now, when I was a kid, you know, Britney Spears, she's older than me. And I just remember thinking, man, she is kind of blushing when I saw her, thinking, man, she's quite something.
She's quite something.
But then thinking, this isn't quite right. And I just wouldn't allow myself to listen to everything she put out.
White people.
But now you look at her now and you think, I think as a grown man, what 40-year-old man dressed a teenage girl like this
remember, don't you?
and put her out on a stage? What 50-year-old executive sexualized this?
Hey, I got a moon.
Who are the women that turned the other, that just looked away? Who are the women who dressed her like this and did this for money and profit and fame? No, I'm not saying she's innocent. I'm not saying that you or I are totally innocent. But I think that the propaganda push on our generation has been about sex and power. America's views, the Western Civ views about sexuality have changed a lot since the World War II generation. And that's largely due to Hollywood. Connect the dots. The same people in this cultural zeitgeist, behind the scenes, the music executives. I remember hearing I Kissed a Girl and I Liked It by Katy Perry. I walked into a Taco Bell or somewhere as a young man, and I heard that song, and look, I get the appeal in a sense,
look at all those moons.
but I really don't. And what I remember thinking, my first instinct was, there are kids around. And now those kids are grown, by the way. And guess what they think?
You can't kiss a girl and like it.
They have been influenced by the people, the music producers, who are pushing certain views. Pornography's been normalized.
All right.
You just watch porn like a regular guy? It's my porn collection! Just kidding. That would be weird. It's your porn collection. It's my porn collection! I'm giving you my porn!
We were told as young men that if you don't have sex with a bunch of women, as many women as possible, well, you're just not a man.
That's true. Saying the thing is true. So yeah, we push that.
So many of the bad ideas in history are taking a bad idea bad way of life and reacting against it into something else that's stupid and bad.
So I gotta like
I think
jump
like
on this thing. Tippy top.
If there are some bad men in power, then you have some
Fuck!
toxic views of
Come on,
feminism
Mario,
that have
work with
sprung
me
up
here,
as a
man.
reaction against that. Well, they're both wrong. If you have some Republicans or
Damn it.
perhaps there are problems with capitalism,
I hate this part of
I
the
think you
level.
could critique the American economy. But then people react against that, and now they're open to Marxism, which is death. And so reacting against that chauvinist culture, as it's been called, toxic masculinity, but really it was just encouraging young men, taking their sex drives and manipulating them and warping them, which is, sex is a good thing, sex drive is a healthy thing, and then warping it and manipulating it from perverted minds in the cultural zeitgeist, in the elite, not all the elite, but many of them, and then profiting on it. Profiting on it. Pornography is consumerism run amok. They've taken normal things about life, the family meal, and they've turned it into a fast, quick, disposable thing, fast food. I like fast food, but now it's just about profit.
Dude,
and
come on.
America's kitchen is no longer in the home. Now it's in a drive-through, and we're all sick. Same thing with sex. Sex is now something that's for profit for corporations and perverted people. It even involves now human trafficking. And the same people who are involved in that trafficking process, sex and power, lust for power, are the same ones pushing this stuff in our television shows, in our movies, in our music. I know this isn't popular, but I think we've been brainwashed. And this is why I try to have compassion with millennials, even Gen X and baby boomers and Gen Z, but really particularly people about my age. People think I'm too soft on the LGBT movement, but I'm telling you, I hold the Catholic teaching, but I also just know that you now have adult generations of people who simply had their minds shaped and how they see themselves and how they see the world. And I absolutely have compassion for those people. And it's not always a simple thing. In Macbeth, Lady Macbeth literally calls on dark spirits. She said she would be willing to murder her child.
What the Come on with that shit.
And pull thee in the dunnest smoke of hell. That my king
Mario,
might
grab
see
the
not
damn
the
ledge,
wound that makes
man.
no heaven, peep through the blanket of the dark to cry
Sick of this part of the level.
She would do this for power, and she calls on black, dark spirits to give her the power to do what she would not do on her own. And the thing is, they do. Macbeth says he has ambition, but it's faltering ambition, and he needs a spur to complete his ill intent. And his wife certainly spurs him on. But here's the thing about that. Sin, moral wrongdoing, this is why I've pled with atheists to not go down this route of morality isn't real, it's just a pleasant illusion. Stop that. Politely, and I mean it, please reevaluate. Because you are losing the ground on which to, you've lost the ground on which to stand to say that things that are evil, and evil is spreading. Right now, we need a healthy dose of moral realism. The moral order of the universe, the moral layer of reality.
Just want to grab onto the freaking thing. Come on, man.
Morality. These
Stay
things
on
are
the
sort of
fucking platform.
ingrained in the fabric of reality, and to sin, to do immoral things, affects us. It warps the fabric of reality. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, they went mad.
Story, bro. Not real.
They went insane, and they lost themselves. They accomplished the power, they got the position that they wanted, and they lost themselves to it. That is the state of Western civilization. Not everyone, but quite a few. Quite a few. And I have a very simple solution. I feel I have so much, I hurt for young people who have a hard time finding love right now.
Fucking platform.
And we're being divided 1,000 ways. Boomers against millennials. Millennials hate the boomers. Gen X thinks they're better than everybody. A cool generation. all this black versus white, white versus black, Democrat versus Republican, we're being divided 1,000 ways, and it's not always over truth. When in reality, a lot of us, if we sat down and talked and got to know each other, we'd find out that we agree about quite a few things. It's just the application of those things. And the people manipulating us, the influencers, the cable news networks, the politicians. I think a lot of, just as an example, a lot of the more decent-minded Democrat people genuinely care about immigrants. Do I think that the leftist thought leaders and the party leadership, they all care about immigrants? No, I don't think so. Because if they did, the same people on the way to this, the federal government allowed the cartels to control our border my entire life, more and more. Why? What country does this? Why? Why? Knowing full well that so many people, the cartels, created pathways to get people here, profiting off of their desperation. And they controlled who came into our country, not some legitimate authority. And a huge percentage of the women and children who came here were abused. People went missing, people were trafficked. I'm willing to wager into sex trafficking. People died. And the people on the left and the thought leaders, they didn't care, but now that they're here, suddenly they don't want them to be mistreated by ICE. I think that's the voters who feel that way, I really think that's a well-intentioned thing. But we're being manipulated. The powers that be are not interested, I'm afraid, in genuinely solving a problem and helping people. They're dividing us for power. Everybody is being dehumanized, and we're dehumanizing ourselves, we're dehumanizing each other. So I have a simple thought. If we're being dehumanized, the way to fight that is to do human things and to be more fully human. If you're a man and you can't find genuine love and you want to be accepted, pornography is not the way to do that.
Oh, look at that.
It's part of the problem. Better yourself, work on yourself, find a skill set, find your path in life, give yourself to God, whether in religious service or if you're already a dad, even if you have no wife, be the best dad you can be. I think we've been robbed of our cultural inheritance. I think modernity for such a long time, though with some progress, has made so many deep mistakes, terrible tragedies. We've been robbed of our cultural inheritance. I'm not talking about a white thing, I'm talking about Western Civ. Whether you're Hispanic, this is still your cultural inheritance. So hey, turn off the consumerist nonsense out there, those garbage written stories. Hey, here's Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Here's Tolkien's translation. Read that. By the way, some people I love got me this cool book. It's pictures by Tolkien, and it's actually his art, which is just really cool to flip through. I haven't read it, but it's just cool to flip through. Here's the quest for the Holy Grail. The Iliad, the Odyssey. Read about Christianity, historic Christianity. I'm telling you that when you see the world as it was and see what we've lost, it's hard for me to think that in some ways this wasn't deliberate. To be more fully human, treat others with humanity, regardless of their political affiliation. I've noticed people on the left will be irate when Renee Good was killed, and I think it's tragic. How many of those same people were applauding when Charlie Kirk was murdered? Or when a man was murdered trying to save his family from an insane person, a thug at a Trump rally? We're mourning death along political lines, and it ought not so to be.
Sorry, you still think it was that one fucking
Whether or not
dude?
I think Renee's
way behind
death was murder or justified self-defense, I'm not even getting into that here, but if I am applauding her death, mocking it, something's wrong with me. We're being manipulated. And my concern is that those dark spirits that Lady Macbeth called out to, I'm no longer convinced that they are not literally at work. And if we're not careful, they'll be at work in our lives as well. Historic Christianity built Western civilization, and it is my belief and my hope that it can do so again, though. We're going to face some hard times. Whether you're a Christian or not, hard times very well might be coming.
Sorry.
But the more we give ourselves to God, and my encouragement to you is prayer, fasting, self-restraint. By God's grace, reorder those disordered appetites that we have for food, sex, pleasure, all these things. The goal of life is not to hide from hardships. It's to grow and be able to face them with strength.
How do I get up there?
To just hide in our apartments, playing video games nonstop.
What?
Trying to pleasure ourselves.
Don't do that.
That's not a good life. I'm a Catholic, so I'm going to say the sacraments are something that can enrich our spiritual lives. They're means of grace. It's like that game Elden Ring where you have sights of grace in this dark,
Christianity took
corrupted world.
Hard left.
And you're safe there. That's like a sacrament. I'm not a perfect man. I'm not claiming to be above you in any way, shape, or form. And I hope you know that if I know you in real life, I genuinely care about you. I just do. Whether you agree with me or not. And I've made a lot of people mad for saying these things.
No, I didn't want to. Damn
and
it.
I get it. But I think if there's any hope for the future, it's going to be on us.
Can I back out?
It's our turn to stand up and take the responsibility.
I don't want to do this
Do the
again.
hard things, to discipline ourselves and
do
give the
this
charity,
again.
to genuinely help our neighbors, to help our parents as they
Damn it.
age, to be the best parents we can be, because the system is failing and it ain't going to do it.
I'm gonna die. This is the perfect time to leave. See ya. Powering up. Where to next? That doesn't look like America, or doesn't look like the world, I mean. Snow Kingdom, or the Seaside Kingdom. Ooh-wee. We wanna get fucking frigid? We wanna get down by the sea. The sea looks cooler. I don't wanna be reminded of the cold. I'm pretty tired of living, but I don't want to watch a video about it. Jesus is the God of the Old Testament. That's not true. God of the Old Testament was pretty nasty. The system finally explained. They will do anything to delete this video. Yeah? Well, it's not deleted yet. It's been 2 months. Or 3 weeks. They could do a lot harder. I mean, they could just delete it right away. What is this? The cannibalism industry?
Alright, really quick. If there was ever a Tale Foundry video you actually paused to read the content warnings on, proposal. You may have heard of it. A modest proposal is a sick little piece of satire. It imagines a whole industry built around cannibalism. Not just any cannibalism, mind you. The mass consumption of human babies. Helpfully, the narrator lays out a meticulous plan detailing how exactly this would all work.
Well, that's messed up. Well, I think we'll end the stream there tonight, guys. Thanks for watching. And I'll catch you on another stream sometime soon. Probably, Rico's probably planning to do another Conspiracies. Maybe even this weekend. So, stick around for that. And have a good night, everybody.